Okay, hello everybody. This isn't looking very good. Got 22 of you in the room, but my PC is moving really slow. I should have probably shut it down before I started the live stream, but I'm gonna need you guys to tell me how this is streaming. It's actually a PC problem. It's not an internet problem. My PC is just moving really slow. So let me know in the chat. Can you hear me okay? Is it streaming okay? Um, Yeah. Someone said doing good. Sounds good. Amazing. All right, fine. Everything's fine so far. So maybe we can carry on. At my end, it looks horrible, but that being said, I don't need it to really look good. So fingers crossed, we may be able to get on with what we're doing today. Now, guys, I have to start off with a little bit of a disclaimer. Okay. First things first, there's a heat wave here in the UK. It's absolutely sweltering. I can actually feel the sweat building up as I'm in my studio, and it's hot in here, and yeah, it's not good. I'm just giving a forewarning. I'm gonna go for as long as I can. And someone said the image is chopped. Yeah, I kind of expected that. So I'm gonna disappear soon. You don't really need to see me that much, so that might help things. But yeah, it's very, very hot. I'm sweltering. I'm gonna go for as long as I can. So I'm just giving you a forewarning. Okay. Oh, okay, so it's hot in the US too. Yeah, there's heat wave over here. It's hot. It's a lovely day. Don't get me wrong, but we're just not very well equipped. Like, we don't have ACs in our houses in the UK because there's just not enough sun to justify it. So those few days of the year when it gets really hot, we normally have no idea what we're gonna do about it. So we're just kind of like lying there like lemons in the sun. But anyway, shout out to everybody who's joined me. We've got more than 50 already online. So that's excellent news. Someone said the video's lagging. Well, I'll tell you what, if the video's lagging and the audio's not, hopefully you guys don't mind too much not being able to see me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to disappear myself. I'm gonna disappear myself so you guys can see the screen, because you don't need to see me that much anyway. So there you go. I'm now a minor contributor and you can just see the screen. Okay. So there you go. All right. That being said, oh, Wesker said it's rain over there and it's cold. how is that possible? Wesker's tuning in from Nigeria, by the way. Yeah, how the tables have turned indeed. It's a sign of things to come. All right. Nigeria's gonna take our weather, and we're gonna take Nigeria's economy. All right, anyway, let me stop being silly. All right, so do y'all have ceiling fans? They help you. Not really. I mean, my mom has one. Go to most black households and they have a ceiling fan. I think it's a carryover from first generation people who migrated over from like the West Indies and Africa, when they, especially the Caribbean and Africa, when they ended up in the UK, they all bought they all bought ceiling fans. So my mum's got ceiling fan. All my African friends have got ceiling fans in terms of like their mum's house. All of my Caribbean friends have got ceiling fans. But us second gen, no, we don't have any ceiling fans in our house. Just there you go. Anyway, that being said, let's get started. So, topic at hand. I wasn't going to tackle this. This is my total honest kind of like response in regards to this topic. So there's a new movie that should be coming out in July called The Odyssey. It's directed by Christopher Nolan, who's an excellent director who's done everything from Batman to Inception, and he's doing his version of The Odyssey. Now, if you was to ask me what is The Odyssey, I think that's a very valid question, because in as much as modern critics want to claim this is about the protection of the IP, the racial IP, the racial intellectual property of a time-worn, full-on, handed down story that's handed down from generation to generation. The Odyssey isn't that. Okay. The Odyssey is Greek mythology that really is only known by people who have some kind of interest or knowledge in the classics. It's not something that you're taught really at primary school or secondary school as a part of your history courses. Maybe if you took I don't know, maybe like if you took like philosophy, I don't know if there's some crossover there. But it's one of those things where you have to kind of like want to interact with it to know it. And I would say this is even the same with the Iliad. So to be very clear, Homer wrote 2 works. Well, he wrote 8 works, but we only have, I think, 2 of them. And the 2 works that we have are the Iliad and the Odyssey. The Iliad is the story of Troy. Okay, and now most people know the story of Troy because it was handed down and people read stories to them and no, none of that. Most people know the story of Troy because of the recent movie. Okay, that's the reason why 95% of modern culture even know the story of Troy, because we had that movie released in the early 2000s, I believe, with Brad Pitt. Okay, and as a result of there being a movie, everybody knows the story of Troy. Now, before the movie, everybody had heard of Achilles. I'm not going to disagree with that. Most people knew the story of Achilles, but most people didn't really know the story of, you know, the Trojan Wars and, you know, the Iliad and the fall of Troy and all of this stuff. Most people didn't really know that story. And even, to be honest, now that the movie has passed and a lot of people have watched it, most of them still don't really know the story of the Iliad. Now I happen to have a copy of the Iliad right here. Okay, I don't have a copy of the Odyssey. I have a copy of the Iliad right here. I don't know why I've got that letter sticking out of it. Yeah, so I've got a copy of the Iliad right here. I don't have a copy of the Odyssey. Okay, and I only have a copy of the Iliad because essentially I'm an independent researcher and an independent historian. So hey, it's of some interest to me. Do I expect this to be commonplace reading on people's shelves? No, not really. Okay, I don't think it's going to be commonplace reading, and I'd say very much the same thing with the Odyssey. Some people will know it. Someone's just said, and let me give a shout out to Just Be Know. How you doing, my brother? Thank you very much for the $2 donation. He said in the US, we all read the Odyssey in high school. I said that, well, you're very fortunate. In the UK, we did not. And I would say it all depends on where you've been schooled. If you're, you know, maybe it's a really important piece of literature in the US. In the UK, not so much, once again. So it's just one of these kind of like pieces that people will know or people won't know. People will, you know, regard or people won't regard. And there's no shame on you if you know, if you don't know the story of the Odyssey. But everyone's got to act like it's this really important story now. And that's kind of like the first thing I feel like we need to have a discussion about. It's like, really, is it? It's Greek mythology. It's like, is it really important? Is it really all of those things? You know, I'm not sure. Okay. Now, that being said, I would like to get into the crux of this because, like I said, I wasn't going to respond to it, but this seems to be going from strength to strength in terms of the negative kickback about, really, people are making it about, oh, I don't like the costumes, I don't like this, I don't like that, oh, they're not being historically accurate. Being historically accurate about Greek mythology, since when has being historically accurate about mythology, when have they ever cared about that? Did they not see gods of Egypt? Like, what the heck? What's they can't even get being historically accurate about Egyptian costumes correct. You have flipping Egyptian slave drivers, which once again is another fallacy they made up, wearing pharaonic headdresses in the modern day. They're still doing it. Yeah, even modern Egyptians do that. You know what I mean? We are the Egyptians, and they're all lined up, all wearing the pharaonic headdress. Like, you lot don't even understand the culture that you're grifting off. Yeah. And then you're going to talk to the rest of the world about historical accuracies. Like, stop being ridiculous. Because really what this is all about, and I'm sure you guys have all picked up on this, what this is all about is the fact that a black woman, Lupita Nyongo, a dark-skinned African black woman, has been cast as Helen of Troy, who is said to be the most beautiful woman at whoever lived, okay, according to this mythology, okay? And people do not want to see that kind of titleage given to a black woman, nonetheless an African black woman who wears her hair naturally and has natural African beauty without the need for external kind of like, you know, she doesn't put on loads and loads of makeup. She just, I mean, that's her skin. That's her pure skin. You can see it in the thumbnail, right? This is a woman who is comfortable with her African hair, comfortable with her African features, is universally regarded as a very beautiful woman. And they hate the fact that that title is being given to a black woman. And they're going to try and make it about everything else, this, that, and the other. But that's what it comes down to. And you've got to realize in every single one of these critiques, they say she can't be cast as Helen of Troy because she ruins it for me, or this, that, and the other. But they won't ever justify it, because the justification for that claim is just racism. That's all it is. It's just racism. Yeah, they're racist. Okay, and they are, I think Wildflower said it excellently, they are insecure. And what you see here is a depiction of my thumbnail, by the way, which obviously is AI, Metatron, who is very clumsily coined the term Helen of Congo. So he's a guy who was completely fallen out of my graces now. I was just kind of like letting him slide. But now I think I'm going to go full war mode on Metatron, because he's just become a disgusting bigot and a racist. So we've got Metatron on the right. We've got a guy called Nerdrotic in the middle, whose videos I'm not going to look at because he's so vile and so stupid. He's not even worth debunking. He doesn't debunk anything. He's just, I mean, he doesn't prove anything. He's just a stupid racist with a channel. Okay, so I'm not even going to look at his videos, but I want to put his face in the thumbnail because he said some of the most vile and racist things. And then on the left, actually, someone who I actually liked. I don't know if many of you will recognize this guy. He's a comedian called Al Jokes, I think his name was, and I'll subscribe to him. Loved his channel for a long time, and then he made a video about this very topic, and he said something that I was like, even as a joke, I'm just not having that. That's just racist. I'm not having that. You know, I think he said something along the lines of, and they cast a bald black woman as the most beautiful woman on earth. It's like, I was like thinking to myself, first of all, none of those two things are disqualifiers. First of all, obviously, you can be black and the most beautiful woman on earth, okay? Quite easily. Obviously, I'm biased. I'm going to say the most beautiful woman on earth is not only probably, but it's obviously going to be a black woman. But that's me being biased. But secondly, even bald. You can't throw bald at black women, because black women are the only women on the planet who can pull off bald, okay? Black women pull off bald effortlessly. Black women don't need hair to be beautiful. Your women do, respectfully. There's a lot of beautiful white women out there. I'm not going to sit here throwing shade and this, that, and the other, say, oh, I don't see. No, there are a lot of beautiful white women out there, but don't cut their hair off. Yeah, let's be real. Ain't no one need to see that head. Yeah, no one needs to see that scalp. No one needs to see that flat back of scalp. Like you know, and I know, and they know they can't pull off bald. They just can't do it. They don't have the head shape for it. It doesn't marry their features very well. The hair is very much a part of the beauty when it comes to the kind of like the white aesthetic. And that's not a diss and that's not shade, but I think all white people, if they're honest, would agree with that. If there was a bald-headed, beautiful woman competition, black women would win 100% of the time. Okay, so the fact that he said that phrase just really turned me off him. So I unsubscribed for obvious reasons, but on top of unsubscribing, I also put him on this thumbnail just to show a little bit of throw a little bit of hate his way. I didn't want to get away with that. So just bear with me. I think my doorbell's ringing. Asia, get the door! Excuse me. By the way, that was my daughter I was shouting out, not my wife, in case you're worried. Okay. I had to throw that out there. Let me give a couple of shout outs, and then we're going to get this live stream underway. Okay. Okay. First of all, shout out to, oh my gosh, my PC is moving so slow. I hope I can bear this today. Shout out to Macy. Thank you very much. She said, actually, it's more historically accurate, her playing the character. We're going to get into that, Macy. And I'm going to say that you're absolutely incorrect. Okay. And thank you very much for your $5 donation. It's much appreciated. And Just Me Noel says, in the US, people are obsessed with ancient Greece. It's kind of treated as the start of humanity, but these people hate real Greeks. Absolutely. And in the US, obviously, US are plagued by the fact that the US is not only a migrant, but it's I hope you don't mind me saying this, the US are a mongrel population. Sorry, 1 second. Yeah, sorry, excuse me. I was in the middle of saying, yes, in the US, I hope you don't mind me saying this, the US has respectfully, a mongrel population, okay? In that, and this is why in the US, people cling on to race so much. Race is a massive thing in the US because the US doesn't have its population. I'm talking about obviously the ruling population, the white population here, doesn't have a history really beyond slavery and Jim Crow. Okay. And the people that make up the modern population are a hodgepodge. And not only are they a hodgepodge, they're a hodgepodge of people without a true lineage. Okay. So when you're a white US citizen, it's very rare that people go, oh, I'm from this part of the world. They get their genetic test done and they're all a hodgepodge mix of different Europeans. And as a result of essentially being a mix of a hodgepodge of different Europeans, they can't cling on to a single European lineage. And this is why the claiming and the falsification and the falsifying, I should say, of what they classified as Western civilization, i.e. Greece and Rome, Greco-Roman, and then obviously the later Holy Roman Empire, the claimant of these civilizations was incredibly important to these populations because they needed to give themselves a tangible footprint in history that's far enough away from the modern population that they can say, oh, we have a history. And this is why, I don't know if you guys have seen that meme that goes around. It says, how often do you think about the Roman Empire? Yeah. And all these American guys, and they're like, oh, I think about it all the time, man. I think about probably like twice a day, the Roman Empire. And their wives are like, why do you think about the Roman Empire so much? And it's because they don't have a history to cling on to. So the irony is all of this kind of like bad blood towards the Black American population. But you have to understand something. They are so jealous of the fact that the Black American population, in spite of the deliberate falsification of the history, the oppression, everything, the Black American population have carved for themselves a tangible culture, have carved for themselves many strands of kind of like historical identification in terms of where they essentially graft their historical trees using genealogy and discussion, etc. And they're very jealous of that because they don't have that. And this is one of the reasons why they have a lot of hatred, because essentially you have two populations that have got confusing genetics, lots of ancestry coming from loads of different places. Yeah. But you've got one population that should be doing really badly in this area, being the Black population, and they're fine. Okay. And then you've got the white population who are a total mess, which is why race is so important to them. I'm white. Yeah, but where are you from? What's your culture? White culture. Where's your whiteness? Yes, the Greeks must be white. Like everything is white. Like white's not. You do realize you made that up like 200 years ago. Yeah, you made white up. Before you made it up, it didn't exist. So you guys just made this thing up, and now you gotta give it meaning. And this is why whiteness is so important to them. When you realize how devoid of history and culture these people are, you understand why they so violently attack the need for everybody to accept race and whiteness. So it's going to be one of those days. So anyway, I'm going to get going now because, guys, we got so much to cover. And the way I'm rambling on, one would think that I've got all day, and I really don't. I've got a lot to cover. And I'm just going to say this to you guys. If you've just kind of like joined this discussion and you're wondering where we're going, okay? Yeah, if you just join this discussion and you're wondering where we're going with this, I'm going to prove in this live stream, just so you know, if you're wondering, should I stay on? What's he going to discuss here? I'm going to prove that the casting of Lupita Nyongo for Helen of Troy is better than the casting of any white individual that has played that character historically. Yeah, that was a sound effect I just put there. All right, I'm going to prove that actually not only is casting Lupita Nyongo as Helen of Troy okay, if we look at the historical sources, you're going to find that actually it's a better casting than the ones that many of these racists are throwing out there. And there's quite a journey. We've got quite a lot of different literature and pieces of evidence to look at. But this live stream really should be called "They Lied to You About Aspects of Ancient Greece." Okay, they lied to you about aspects of ancient Greece, and one massive aspect is the Homeric pieces, their relationship with the ancient Ethiopians, that is the black people of the world, and the relation of the relationship of the Ethiopians to the gods in ancient Greece. Because one of the things we're going to cover today is the fact that Helen of Troy is actually a demigod. Her father is Zeus, and Zeus was a deity that they inherited from Africa. I am going to prove this. This is not a discussion. It's not disputable. There is copious amounts of historic evidence to suggest that Zeus was a deity that they inherited from Africans, and not only that, they regarded Zeus as being black. Okay, we're going to get onto this now, all right, because it's important that we kind of like dive in and we can have this discussion. Once again, none of this is going to be my opinion. I'll give you the sources and I'll give you the literature, and then afterwards you can make your own decision about the way that you view this. But you have been lied to about Grecian history, okay? I'm going to go into this right now, okay? All right, let's do this. And I hope my laptop holds up, because boy, oh boy, this is moving mad slow. Woy, yo, 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 yo. Okay, let me give a quick shout out to this is quite unbearable, you know, guys. How would you feel if I don't know how long that will take. I really want to restart my PC. It's just so slow. It's horrendous. Shout out to James Stewart. Said that what these people call white is really just American European diaspora phenotype that is derived primarily from Northern Europe due to history of its white nationalist immigration policy. Correct. I don't see anything false in that. Thank you very much for that $10 donation, but that's very true. Okay. Next, a big shout out to Wildflower. Thank you very much for your £5 donation. She says the ancient Greeks deeply admired Black Africans, Ethiopians. Absolutely, they did. They didn't really like modern Europeans, mostly Germanic tribes. Yeah, that's an understatement. I'd say that you soften that blow for them. And this is the irony. It's almost like it's like a rinse repeat for these historical usurpers to claim a history of a people who historically despised them. Historically despised them. Like, your ancestors are north of the Aegean. They're north. You know where they come from. Okay, there's no dispute that your ancestors are not this group, yeah, that are in the Mediterranean at this period of time. Your ancestors are the ones who are responsible for their removal, for their demise. You're aware of that, but you need this history so bad. You need this version of history to play out so bad. You're willing to deny the enmity that existed between these people and your ancestors because claiming this history is far more important to you. Absolutely correct. Thank you very much, and for that £5 donation. And let me just give a shout out. Last one before we get started to Dregger. Thank you very much for the $5 donation. He says the people that killed and ate Greece and Rome are claiming Greece and Rome is in line with Vandal cultural practices. That word Vandal is very important. Thank you very much, Dregger. Okay, because the word Vandal coinciding with the word vandalism is not an accident. These are a people who are historically known to steal cultures that are not their own, to usurp, to deface, to move into higher cultures, and then to replace the existing artifacts with ones that look like their own, to recarve and to deface them. The word defacement and vandalism come from the same historical culture. Okay, it's not just a random kind of words we picked out. No, the behavior of these societies was so peculiar, they have been written into our modern etymology. It's very important that we understand that. The Vandals are known for essentially refacing history. Okay, that's what they're known for. So very astute, and thank you very much for that $5 donation. Let's get into this. Hopefully we're going to watch a few videos together just so you guys can get familiar with the kind of controversy and the kind of things that are being said. And after we've watched a few of these videos together, we're then going to dive into some of the literature and some of the evidence that is going to paint a clearer picture about the ancient Greek society and Africa. And to be clear, let me put this at the top of this disclaimer. This is not a video where I'm going to be claiming that the ancient Greeks or Grecian society were black. Okay, that's not what I'm painting here. So I'm going to make that very, very clear. All right, I'm not saying that they're black. All right, that's not the intention of this video. But the intention of this video is to highlight that ancient Greece not only admired, but truly, truly venerated the historical society of ancient Egypt and the Ethiopians. They truly held them on a pedestal, and many of the founding states, the founding cities, the founders, and the great rulers drew strength from that association. Many of them, like the Argive dynasty, which we're going to look at shortly as well, said that they descended directly from the ancient Egypts. And another massive, massive headline that I'm going to put out there is many of the homes of the ancient Greek gods were in Africa. So the cities where they associated these gods being from were in Africa. And all of this is very provable, and you can't erase it. It's it's there, it's written in history. So we'll get onto this together. Okay, let's have a look. All right, let's go. So let's start with this video. We're not going to watch too much of it, but this video will give you a good idea of the kind of energy that's being put out and what people are saying. Okay,
should feel cinematic, larger than life, and instead it already feels weirdly modernized, emotionally flat. We have the...
I just played that for a few moments. Put a 1 in the chat if you heard that playing as it was playing. Put a 2 or a comment if you didn't hear the audio coming out from that video as it was playing. I let it play for about 8 seconds there, so let me know if you heard it. I won't start again until I know that everyone's heard it, okay? Okay, cool. All right, so let's start again. And I'm just going to let this play through, and I might respond to it afterwards.
This movie should feel cinematic, larger than life, and instead it already feels weirdly modernized, emotionally flat. We have the expected DEI, race swaps.
This is the stupidest, most
expected DEI, race swaps. Anyway, let's let it carry on.
asinine shit I've ever seen. And I was born in Greece. But if we're going to rewrite history into this debacle, then certainly this should be allowed.
Elliot Page looks like maybe playing Achilles.
So you just saw the argument there. If we're going to allow black people to play ancient Greeks, then we should allow white people to play Barack Obama. Okay, that's the false equivalency argument that you hear raised quite a lot. Let's let it carry on.
Because we all know the trans character from the Odyssey. Right. A huge part of the problem is Hollywood's obsession with filtering every classic story through current ideological trends and contemporary culture instead of what? Respecting the source material. They can't do it. Probably because they have to go through the DEI checklist so that it's eligible for the Oscars. Most likely what
And the ironic thing about this consistent DEI claim is that movies that don't do integration, representation, now, I'm not saying these things need to be done, but you'll find that movies that just ignore these just tend to be very dry and boring. And that's why many Hollywood studios opt for diversity, because people just find it more interesting. That's all it is. Okay, people like to see a little bit of diversity. It brings some interest to the characters when there's more than just, you know, white males. But white males have got an obsession with only seeing themselves on the screen. It's bizarre, but it's what they like. They're literally the most insecure demographic of people on the planet. They are, and they have no reason to be. They literally are the caste and the they are the caste and the gender that have nothing to complain about, but complain more than all other ethnicities and genders, you know, put together. Yeah, we can all get together and literally we don't complain 10% as much as white males do. They complain consistently. The president of the United States acts like a persecuted individual. The richest person on earth acts like he's got the hardest life because he's a white male. You cannot make this stuff up. They are incredibly insecure. Now, there's a reason for that, which I'm not going to go into right now, but let's carry on.
Nolan is doing. But let's talk about the controversy here. So first of all, the casting. Looks like Helen of Troy is going to be played by Lupita Nyongo. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. So
Now, I'm just going to bring that image back.
Looks like Helen of Troy is going to be played by Lupita Nyongo.
Now, to be clear, this is a massive disrespect and a dog whistle here. They've actually used AI to put kind of like Grecian clothing on her. This is an image of Lupita Nyongo from 12 Years a Slave, I think it was. I don't watch those movies, but I believe it was 12 Years a Slave. Correct me if I'm incorrect, but it's one of those movies, okay? So this is her, obviously, deliberately looking her most downtrodden. Still looking incredibly beautiful, by the way, but this is their attempt to throw shade on Lupita Nyongo, okay? No makeup on, hair very short, like I said, wearing what they've put on, kind of rags on her, still looking incredibly beautiful. You know, that's the biggest shade. This is literally the biggest shade they could throw on her, and it's like, is that it? Is that the biggest shade you could throw upon her? Let's get one of your kind of like hailed women on, looking disheveled with short hair and no makeup on and wearing that outfit, and see if she compares. I sincerely doubt it, but this is where the jealousy comes from. But anyway, let me carry on.
I'm not sure how to pronounce that. So she is playing Helen. So she's supposedly the most beautiful woman in the Greek world, one of the most iconic figures in Greek mythology. And this casting completely breaks the historical mythological immersion that a lot of people were looking forward to, right? Because when audiences picture Helen,
and this is just it, yeah. So you hear this woman, oh, it breaks the you know, the immersion, because that people were looking forward to. Okay, so first of all, it breaking the immersion of people who are historically illiterate. I thought first of all that this was about historical literacy. So if it's about historical literacy, why are you now making the argument that you're worried that it breaks people's immersion if the people are not historically literate? The fact that she wants Helen of Troy to look like her, or someone who looks like her, redheads and blonde heads with blue eyes, people who literally would have been regarded as barbaric and demonic in Grecian society. Don't take my word for it. Okay, these people were seen as barbarians. Yeah, this is the daughter of a barbarian horde to an ancient Greek. But no, this is what she must have looked like because I said so. Okay, this is what they like to put out there. Anyway, let's carry on.
Helen of Troy. They are imagining a very specific cultural and historical archetype.
That picture was not contemporaneous nor historically accurate, the one that she flashed up on the screen for 2 minutes. But anyway, let's carry on.
Tied to ancient Greece. But Hollywood does not seem to care about accuracy, unless, of course, it benefits modern political messaging, right? They wouldn't race swap in the other direction. They wouldn't take an original black character and make a white actor play them. But this...
Did you hear? She just said that, by the way. Yeah, with a straight face. She just said that, by the way, with a straight face. They wouldn't take a historical black character and play them with a white actor. Like, This is clearly someone who's never seen Gods of Egypt. No, never seen Gods of Egypt. Never seen any of the. Literally, do it in the same region. Yeah, consistently. White Northern Europeans have been playing everyone in every movie, every biopic, every historical fiction, and every historical, documentary since the invention of media. There is not a single ethnicity you haven't portrayed. You've portrayed everything from Africans to friggin' Persians to everything. It's absolutely ridiculous. The fact that she could say that with a straight face, and it's not even like they just change the visuals. They also give them the strongest English accents and then be like, yep, we're going to revise the way people perceive, revise the way people perceive the ancient Libyans. It's like, the Libyans are still there. The taboo are still there. Yeah. These ancient Berbers are still there. They're still present. They could show you what those historical people look like, but you don't care about being historically accurate. Okay. This is the issue that we have here. This is about appeasing white sensibilities and not having white males cry, which is what, the insecure, white males in America, respectfully, are the most insecure people on the planet. I say in America, but Anglo-Saxon males are the most insecure breed on the planet.
This is fine.
Now, when you make a movie, you have to allocate big parts to the DEI gods. And this is exactly what they do. It's not about the actress. This decision right here, it just takes you away from the movie.
These stories.
And people keep saying about the fact that it takes you away from the movie. And once again, I question, have they read the Odyssey? Because people are, someone said in the chat, they all read the Odyssey. Well, if they've all read the Odyssey, they'll know that Helen's part in the Odyssey is tiny. It's minuscule. Okay. It's smaller than her part in the Iliad. So talking about her being black, taking you out of the story, acting like you're going to see her in every other scene. She's barely going to have any lines in this story. But once again, they don't care about that. It's not about that. She's not a major character. That's not important to them. Yeah.
Came from specific civilizations, specific people, specific cultural identities. So if you want to create a new mythological fantasy story with original characters, have black actors play them, have Asian characters play them, Native American characters, the whole cast can be trans. It doesn't matter. The whole cast can be in a wheelchair, whatever you want, but create an original story then.
But these people would still complain. The Odyssey is a fiction. It therefore is an original story in terms of anybody can come along and essentially no one owns the IP to it. Anybody can come along and make a version of the Odyssey and cast whoever they want. Yeah, it's not, the race of the people was entirely, and I'm going to say this once again, entirely irrelevant in the Odyssey, as it was in almost every story that was written before the 16th century. Race is entirely irrelevant to how well that story is going to be told. This is just dog whistling to say we want everyone to be black. And once again, this is their attempt on falsifying history. Falsifying history to say, if we shout enough that these people were lily white, yeah, then we're not going to get any pushback. But I'm sorry, you're going to get pushback. You're definitely going to get pushback from here, because history, literary history, anthropology does not agree with your lily whiteness of ancient Greece. You guys have been subtly trying to whiteify Greece over the past few decades using the media. And I'm sorry, but it's just not going to run. Now, to be clear, I am not a classicist. Okay, I'm not sitting here acting like I'm an expert in the classics. However, I do know enough to know that these people are talking absolute nonsense. Anyway, that's enough of this video. I want to move on to the next one, because this is really where a lot of my hang-up starts off. So Metatron has a video that's got nearly 100,000 views. It's not that much, but he found a new grift, and this guy is just a horrid grifter called Helen of Congo. Okay, so that's literally... Oh my gosh, my camera's overheating even with the fan on. Oh, that's good. You know what? It's all right. I'll take my camera off. It doesn't need to be on. Let me, I might speed things up actually. Let me just turn that off. That's when I know summer. Summer hits, my camera starts overheating. Oi, oi, it's hot in the UK. Oh, I'm just gonna go full screen then. Whoop-de-doo, here we are. So here we are. Metatron has a video called Helen of Congo, and he really was the first to really start putting out these really nasty anti-black dog whistles. And once again, just going back to my motive for doing this video, I think there's a line that's being crossed here. Okay, it's one thing to kind of just like raise, you know, to raise a complaint in a single video. Metatron must be on video number 4 or 5 now on this very topic. And the way I perceive it is that now I feel like it's a more direct attack on Lupita Nyongo. It's a direct attack on Black women. It's a direct attack on Black beauty. It's a direct attack on where, and you know, it's a kind of like way for them to see whether or not we're going to rise up and protect our females. There's a lot going on here. And the reason they're kind of like dogpiling on this subject is because they want to attack us. This is now an attack. It's gone far beyond. You can't react like this based on a casting decision. And so they know exactly what they're doing here. And Metatron is very much leading the helm. So this guy, who respectfully I haven't really been that too critical of recently, and Trill Black has got a hate, like really dislikes this guy, and he's entirely incorrect. I definitely feel like I've went far too soft in him. So it's kind of like gloves are off now. We're going to deal with this guy and his racism and his nastiness. But let's just kind of like go a little bit into this without going, I don't want to watch too much of it because I want to get into the data and the detail of this. Okay. Just making it slightly larger. Let's get going.
Let me present to you Helen of Detroit.
So he's not even like trying to like whisper or dog whistle to his audience now. He's just being out and out racist. Helen of Detroit called her. Now, Lupita Nyongo is neither Congolese nor from Detroit. She's of Kenyan ancestry. And I believe her nationality in terms of where she was naturalized is Mexico. So she's, you know, I think she grew up in Mexico. If I'm correct, please correct me if I'm incorrect. But I believe she's kind of like of Mexican kind of like nationality. But her ancestry is Kenyan, and he's just called her Helen of Detroit, and he's called his video Helen of Congo. So this is just out and out racism that he's playing with here.
Helen of Detroit, how about that one? So Lupita Nyongo is playing Helen of Troy in Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey. Clowns. Clown show. What a waste. She could have been a Kandake, the actual African queens.
And this is Metatron trying to flex now. Well, she could have been oh, you know the word Kandake, which means queen in Merowe. Well done. Round of applause, Metatron. Don't try and limit us, please. Yeah, don't try and limit us geographically, because you and I both know Black queens were all over the world. And in addition to that, okay, in addition to that, what really irritates me about this is the details that I'm going to give you about ancient Greece's relationship with Africa. He'll be aware of. He should know all of this since he's Mr. Classics. But he's very much in denial. And I knew this when I'm going to be quite frank now, when I destroyed him in the ancient Egypt debate. We literally just destroyed him with the evidence. We made him U-turn on his views, although now he's kind of U-turned on those views and done a full 360. Made him 180, but now he's 180 again. He's done a full 360. But when we destroyed him, one of the things I destroyed him on was actually literature that comes directly from, ironically, the Odyssey. Okay, about how the Odysseus actually. There's a lot of arguments in the Odyssey that Odysseus is a dark-skinned, potentially African phenotype person as well, and we're going to look at that as well. And he tried to use that information falsely and present it falsely to his audience and say, oh well, you know, he was having his tan returned, and it had nothing to do with any of that. He was a dark man who was put in a disguise, and then when the disguise was removed, he was turned back to being a dark man. Okay, that very term melas was used to describe what was done, or at least the complexion that was returned to him. And the thing is, I don't need Odysseus to be black, to be clear. I don't need Odysseus to be black. I'm not even going to be arguing that. But I'm going to be arguing that if you're going to claim that Helen of Troy was white, then you have to accept that Odysseus is also black. You can't use two rule sets in a single piece. But anyway, let's sit and carry on.
No, Helen of Troy. Does anyone know how Helen of Troy was described? It's not like they care, do they? Because they'll tell you. I'm going to say this right now on this stream. Don't even care. I'm just going to say it. I'm just saying. Do you remember when I used to say that? That used to be my position, where I was saying, you know what? When it comes to race swapping of characters, if it's if it's history, then I'm against it. But if it's fiction or a video game or a movie, it's not really a big deal. I changed my policy. It's a big deal everywhere. So for the Redditors out there, clip this, make videos about it, go for it, because I changed my policy. I'm against all forms of race swapping, whether it be historical or fictional. Why did I change this? Because I realized over the years that regardless of whether it be a real historical character or a...
So this is just someone saying, my grift isn't paying enough, okay? And I realized that rage baiting pays much more. So I'm going to be rage baiting about everything now. I'm not going to be the historically accurate guy that I was before. I'm going to be the full out grifter, and I'm basically just going to be just like the critical drinker or nerdrotic or any of these other idiots out there, because I need to be able to get angry about things that I shouldn't really be getting angry about, since I present myself as an educated person. Okay, do you see that? That's what he seems to be doing here. Okay, let me give a quick shout out. I just realized there's a few donations that I've missed. Please forgive me, guys. I did warn you about the heat. It is hot. It is hot, and it's making my my attention very hard to keep. Okay, where are we down to? Have I read that one? Black Africans. Okay, I think I'm just up to here. So only two. Okay, so James Stewart said blackness scared them. Thank you very much for the $2 donation. Absolutely true. And 4DV has come with some. I've seen this, and I'm really upset and angry about this, but I don't know if you guys have seen it. There was a guy killed in Dublin, last week, in a very kind of like similar kind of like George Floyd kind of situation. And I saw it and I was so angry, like so angry, to the point where I was just like, I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure how I'm going to cover this. I'll probably cover it on the King Mono show, because it's not really kind of like history. So sometimes I don't like to cross over the two. So I'll probably cover it on my other channel. But I feel like there's individuals in that video who, this is the thing, I don't think we respond correctly as a community when these things happen sometime. And these guys are just like civilians who think they can just go around victimizing black people. I'm not feeling that. I'm going to be totally honest with you. There's certain people in this video I think we need to organize to see them personally, because it's just like, that's what I'd do if it was someone in my family. Like, I'm just being real. If it was someone in my family, yeah, trial and everything aside, you're gonna see me. You're gonna see me. Yeah, and we're gonna have to talk face to face. And there are some real irritating individuals in that video who look like were trying to severely hurt and or unalive this man. And they're not even police, they're just some random security guards. I feel like we need to see these people. That's all I'm saying. Okay, we need to see them, and we need to discuss, we need to have conversations with them, because you ain't gonna just be moving to our people like that. That's how I felt when I saw it. Well, thank you very much for your donation. And yeah, that's an aside. Let me carry on with this video.
A character of literature or a video game, a modern whatever the heck it is, the reality of the fact is there is one common denominator, and it's hatred towards the white race.
See what I mean about these insecure males? So he sees people being cast. Oh gosh, I haven't changed the logo yet. Let's switch that over. Tell you, there's nothing more frustrating than a slow PC when you're doing a live stream. Yeah, he sees people, a diverse cast of people, and people thinking outside of the box as an attack on the, not even attack on the white race. He said it's hatred of the white race. Hatred of the white race. Christopher Nolan hates white people because he cast a black woman as Helen of Troy. And yeah, this is wild. This is absolutely wild. The way, and this is Metatron, by the way, he's leading the charge when it comes to this bullying of Lupita Nyongo, because that's what it is right now. It's absolutely bullying. They're trying to make her life miserable because these guys are so insecure with their own lives. He's not going to get away with it. You're not going to get away with this. I will start destroying your videos one by one, because to be quite frank, you're just a grifter. You don't deserve any of the following that you've got at the moment, even though most of them don't watch your videos anymore. And the only ones that you get any interaction from are the ones where you're passing, you know, massive amounts of hate. Those are the only ones where you get any amount of traction, which is why you opt for the hate. But you don't even have that respect of being historically accurate anymore. Every time I've kind of interacted with this guy's content in the last, I don't know how long, he's just getting completely clowned on and debunked by another person who realizes that he's a grifter. And yeah, I just realized us destroying him on the ancient Egypt debate thing. This is something that he kind of goes through on a monthly basis now, where he's just getting undressed and destroyed by people, you know, other content creators, because they see him as the grifter that he is, you know. Sad stuff. Anyway, let's carry on.
All white people. And it's the hatred that I resent. So at this point, it doesn't matter. When they do something like this, when they do this, right? When they do this, why do you think they're doing it? Why do you think they're doing it?
When they do what? Exactly. When they do this, he's acting like this is like that, like they've thrown a white man in prison or something like that unjustly. Okay, when they cast a black woman, seriously, like when they cast a black woman, there you feel attacked. That's really sad that you feel attacked that they haven't cast a vandal or the descendants of a vandal for Helen of Troy. That's interesting. That's very, very interesting. You feel attacked by that. That's very interesting. Particularly, you're the one who likes to claim historical accuracy so much. Clearly not the case. Oh dear. Let's let me skip ahead. He just talks around that point. I want you guys to get a kind of a full picture, and then we'll dive in. So I just want to quickly put this video up. This is another quite influential creator called Asmongold. Now, don't expect too much from him. There's not much going on between the space, you know, in the space between his ears, this guy. But he has a massive, massive following, which is the kind of the more distressing thing. His following is actually humongous. So, but he makes all the talking points that you expect to see from insecure white males.
So they are changing the Odyssey. From the team that brought you Why is Snow White Latina? Why are there black...
Oh, and by the way, someone asked a very interesting and important question. Who is they? Who is the they? Because all of the executives are white men. Yeah, or white females. All of the funders are white men or white females. Who is this mysterious they that is up against white men and hates white men so much? Who is this powerful cabal of black females controlling everything behind the scenes? Is that what these people think is going on? The victim mentality of these people is just hilarious. They are perpetual victims. It's so sad and so embarrassing. But anyway, let's listen to this. This is
people in rings of power, and Star Wars has gone woke. Comes the latest online onslaught against the diverse cast of the Odyssey. This is a real frame of Helen of Troy in the Odyssey, enhanced with grok to see it better. It's ridiculous.
I don't think this is a real frame, because I'm not sure if the real frames are out showing the PTR. I could be wrong. Let's carry on.
Nobody in the world thought Helen of Troy was black. Nobody thought that.
That looks like AI. I'll say it looks like AI because it doesn't even look like Lupita Nyongo to the right. Okay, it looks like a black woman, and yeah, not a bad looking black woman, but that doesn't literally look like Lupita Nyongo. So I don't think this is a real frame. I think this is them once again just doing their racism. They're doing a racism again
You went and you put a white girl with blonde hair and blue eyes, and you said, this is Cleopatra. You would have all the people that are defending this.
You kind of done that already. That's old. Casting Cleopatra as a white woman is kind of been, I would say, done to death. Casting ancient Egyptians as white people has also been done to death. Okay, they casted, who was it? Not even just Imhotep, it was who was it? Was it Osiris? Osiris, I think it was Aset, the African ancestor. Yeah, the African ancestor, the upper Egyptian, the upper Kemetic Nile Valley African ancestor was blonde haired and blue eyed in Gods of Egypt. And this guy wants to try and put out there, if it was done the other way around, mate, it's been done the other way around ad nauseum. Okay, it's been done the other way around. What world are you living in, man? Seriously.
Attacking you.
I remember my grandmother saying to me, I don't care what they tell you in school, Cleopatra was black.
And so this is somebody.
And by the way, very quickly, we wouldn't attack you because that's not what black people do. Black people don't, we're not aggressive and violent like you guys are. You're constantly finding opportunities to see black people minding their own business and find an excuse to attack the entire community. We don't go around looking for things to be offended about. Okay, believe you me. Yeah, most black people have got bigger fish to fry than looking for small things to be offended about. The only reason we even having an interaction is because you guys have been attacking black people, attacking the black community without any response now for literally 3 months since this movie was announced. All of you grifters have made at least a dozen videos about the subject. And so now black people are going to respond and say, hey, can you get a life? And actually, I'm going to go one step further. I'm not just going to tell you to get a life. I'm actually going to destroy your dreams on this live stream. I'm going to destroy your dreams. So please quote me, clip me, do whatever you want to do. Because after this live stream, I guarantee you these people are going to realize that they have barked up the wrong tree. I'm going to explain and expose to everybody just how black ancient Egyptian gods and demigods were, and you are not going to like the results.
They're boycotting Super Mario Brothers. Oh, this is the guy. John Lezumo, only Latinos should be playing a Latino, stands there in blatant whiteface taking a check for playing a Greek. So wait a minute. This guy had no problem. He had no problem taking
whitefaces, by the way. Black, these insecure white males also, one of the things you'll realize that they're the most unoriginal people on the planet. There's not a single term that they've coined in their entire lexicon. Everything is bastardized black language. Yeah, or bastardized AAVE. That's literally all they know how to do. They don't have to create anything. Oh, it's black fatigue. Oh, we've got black fatigue. Really? It's well, you know, we say we're all the yeah, you guys are woke. Yeah, we're turning that one against you, dude. Okay, cool. All right. And now it's like blackface, something that has historical implications going back over 100 years. Okay, people, white people like you who've got nothing to do. But there's a whole story behind blackface, because blackface, yeah, they put black makeup on, put big red lips, and they insulted black people. But let me give you some game. Let me run some game to you guys now. Yeah. Do you know what blackface was really all about? White people doing blackface. I'm not trying to educate anyone here. I'm sure most black Americans will know this. Blackface was their excuse to perform and listen to black music, because these people have got no creativity. That's what it was. So you guys thought it was all about them putting black makeup on their face and painting their lips red. That was the excuse they needed to perform jazz and ragtime and big band and all of these musics that they stole from black people, because they had no creative bone in their body and they were not able to create their own music. So those early years of white entertainment was them wanting to do the you know, like in Sinners, where they have that kind of like those early iterations of a rave where the black people used to get together. They wanted to do that, but they had no music. They've got no creativity. So they thought, okay, well, how can we get away with doing black music? Because we love their music, but we hate them. So what can we do? Aha, blackface. That was their solution. These minstrel shows was their solution. We can now even invite certain black performers to come and perform for us, but we're just making fun of you. We're just making fun of you. Who would sit there? When you think about it, what sane person would sit through a show when the entire show was just to make fun of another race? Imagine if we had, like, in the black community, we had kind of like I don't know, Bombay shows, all right, and the entire thing was just us making fun of the Indian community. Who would do that? No one. Who would go to that? No one. What a boring thing. The only reason anyone would do that is because on the slide they really wanted to listen to the Indian music, and this was their excuse. Okay, so that's what blackface was. These people have been stealing Black American culture from the start, from the moment of from the moment of the abolition of slavery. They've been stealing Black America. Oh man. Okay, I think it's back now. Let me know if you can hear me, guys. It looked like my stream went down for a bit, but it looks like it might be back. Let me know that you can hear me, okay? Yeah, so anyway, I think I was riffing too hard there for the algorithm. They were like, chop this guy up. But yeah, I was essentially saying that these people have been appropriating Black culture from the start, and they've used different means and methods to appropriate Black culture. Okay, and blackface is just one of them, and this is why whiteface, which is what the term they've tried to coin, which has no historical context, because Black people have never put white makeup on their face and pretended to be white people. Why would they do that? What would they be copying? Are Black people going to really sit around copying white culture that white people copied from Black people? No, they're not. No one's going to waste their time. So let's just be real about the order this goes in. These people are entirely uncreative, okay? And if you don't like, you know, these facts, if you don't like people dropping these facts about white American culture and about even white UK culture, sometimes the ones who pick up on these kind of talking points, then be more creative, respectfully. Yeah, be more creative. Make some of your own genres, make some of your own language, do something cool by yourself, make some of your own terms. Okay, stop copying everything. Even in your hate, all of your language is copied. You sit there respectfully. 60% of young white racists speak AAVE. It pisses me off. 90% of white racists in the UK speak Black London English. It's like, come on, man. Like, even in your hatred, you're copying us, man. Like, be real, man. It's just so annoying. But anyway, let's carry on listening to this clown talk about whiteface. We'll get to the good part soon.
Taking a role.
Are you going to be watching Super Mario Brothers?
No, I will not be watching Super
Oh my
Mario.
goodness.
So they could have included a Latin character. Messed up the inclusion. They disincluded. Just cast some Latin folk. Had some Latin folk. We're 20% of the population, the largest people of color group, and we're underrepresented. Overrepresented in the worst kind of jobs, though.
So no Super Mario Brothers for you?
Hell no.
They have no problem playing this role. They don't care about this. They simply say this so they can take advantage of you. That's it.
Respectfully, I'm not sure what position or role that was, but Latinos, even Latinos, are infinitely more connected to the Mediterranean since they sit on it, yeah, and the Aegean histories than modern white people are, than your ancestors are, Asmongold. So this is the thing. Even other societies are more connected. Yeah, you are literally probably one of the least connected people on the planet to these societies whose history you're trying to claim, which is hilarious. Let me read out a couple of donations before I completely forget that they were there. And then I think we're going to start There was a few more videos that I want to watch, but I think we've got the idea now, and I want to get to cooking these guys in their lies. Okay, I want to get to some of the reality. So let me give a quick shout out to Drager, who said, bro, who is they? Exactly what I was thinking. You know, these people with their mysterious, mystical enemy, okay, that doesn't really exist. Okay. Macy, thank you very much for your $5 donation. She says the default is hatred towards us. They showed extreme hatred towards Greek people here in the USA, making excuses to attack our community. Absolutely. It's always hatred. That's the motivation. And this is the thing about whiteness. This is why white and black are never going to be equivalent terms. And this is why white people get so offended about the use of black as a term to describe a people, the self-use of black, terms like black power or black pride. And they don't understand they will never have the equivalent use of the term white, because white is founded, grounded on hatred. Whiteness is about exclusion of all others who are not. And this is why people will say, even ChatGPT and friggin' AI will turn around and say you're being racist when you try and say, I want to be proud to be white, etc., because there's nothing to be proud of. It's been something that has been formulated on hate and appropriation. It hasn't got its own thing. It didn't create anything. All it's done is stolen and detracted from others. And these guys get, you know, Metatron, I've heard him say so many times, he says, oh, these people are self-hating whites. I hate self-hating whites. I'm like, what the hell is a self-hating white? A white person who doesn't believe in white power is a self-hater? No. A white person who doesn't believe in power is someone who understands history, someone who's historically literate enough to know that this thing called whiteness has done nothing but harm everybody else. And they don't need to, you know, declare their whiteness, be proud of their whiteness, or protect their whiteness as the literal dominant force. You know, it's like I always say this, is like a man respectfully being proud to be a man. Respectfully, that shit's corny to me. I was born a man. I'm not proud to be, I'm so proud to be male. Why the frig would I be proud to be male? I'm proud to be born into the dominant class. I'm proud to be stronger than women. I'm proud to, like, what? This is stupid. Like, I was born into the dominant class. There's nothing to be proud of there. There's nothing to protect there. Okay? I'm male. I don't need to protect my maleness from anything. Yeah? If you're insecure, you might need to. I don't need to protect my maleness from anything. Now, if women want to turn around and say, I'm proud to be women, I understand that, because there's things that they're going to experience as women that I'm never going to experience. There's fears they're going to experience. There's that physical threat they're going to feel. There's that threat of violation that they're going to feel. There's that very realistic situation where they might get paid less for being exactly the same role. Okay, that's why women are allowed to be proud of being women, are allowed to group and associate and try and think of ways of moving themselves up to equity. They're allowed to do all of those things. As a man, you do that shit, you're just corny. I'm sorry, and I know I've got a few red pillars in my, I don't care. Yeah, you guys got to know, like, you guys are corny to me. Yeah, you're well corny to me. Like, you don't need to be proud of being the dominant group. Yeah, let's make sure that's oppressive. Just respectfully, when you're proud of being a dominant group and you want to protect the dominant group, that means you're trying to protect privilege. So a man who's proud of being proud of being a man and trying to protect men, you're protecting a privileged status. So that makes you no better than a white supremacist. Do you not understand that? Anyway, let me carry on. I'm riffing too much here. Shout out to RJ McKenzie. Says, when they say they, it's code for liberals. Yeah, absolutely. And it's like, yeah, now they are white woke. I mean, they are bin whingers. They love to project their weakness and their insecurity upon everyone else. They love to project it. This is what they do. You know, they've got nothing in them that can just stand on their own 2 feet. It's kind of like, yeah, we're going to do all of these horrible things and then project them upon everyone else. Okay, let's give this video 1 more minute and then we're going to stop.
I want to make 3 points that I think
So this is the person right here. Christopher Nolan's Odyssey, translated by Emily Wilson.
This is the translator Nolan is using as the basis for his film.
This is like 2016 or 17. Imagine what the focus is going to be. Guys, does anybody want to guess?
some of the flaws half-year kinds of press coverage. One is that my being the first woman to translate the Odyssey into English isn't really a headline that should...
You know what? I don't think we need to watch this. So this woman, by the way, if you want to know the headlines, I want to get into my content now. If you want to know the headlines, this woman is the one who's responsible for translating the Odyssey. And a lot of people are kind of like angry at her because they see her as kind of like this woke feminist. And actually her translation is the most accurate, because what's happened is over the past couple hundreds of years, white men have been translating and basically euphemizing, muting certain aspects to appease white male sensibility in their translations. So a lot of people who think they're reading a pure version of the Odyssey are reading a white male version. And you guys who were on my live stream maybe about a year ago when I was reading through parts of the intro to the Hermetica, you'll realize how loaded these transliterations are. For essentially the opening, 40 pages of my copy of the Hermetica here, you have the white male. Oh, I can't show you. You can't see my screen. I forgot that. Right? Yeah, but my copy of the Hermetica here, you have the white male translators talking about the fact that even though this book is clearly about Egypt and mentions Egypt hundreds of times, and the Greeks mention that they got this text from Egypt and it's actually not theirs, it's just the translation. All of that is nonsense. We've done our science and our research and our academics, and this is a purely Greek text. It has nothing to do with Egypt. This is just a made-up notion that they created. This is the kind of things that white men do. Yeah, this is how they've been falsifying history, and this is how you get where we are to now. So that woman's translation, she's just gone in and she's just gone essentially raw. Yeah, she's just gone in raw and said, look, this is how the text actually translates. And it's funny because they mention characters like Achilles. Yeah, Achilles is a flaming homo. Yeah, in the Iliad. Yeah, he's a Patroclus, wasn't his cousin. Yeah, Patroclus was his lover, and his whole thing was him trying, him being forlorn in love with Patroclus. Yeah, now you didn't see them arguing about historical accuracy when it came to Troy. Yeah, you didn't see them go, oh well, we will bring back Achilles the homosexual. We don't want a straight Achilles. We want a homo Achilles. You didn't see them saying any of that stuff. Yeah, because it's very selective. They've got this conservative white view, and it's like, be conservative anywhere else, guys, but trying to be conservative with ancient Greek texts, yeah, you're not going to get very far. Yeah, you're not going to get very far on this at all. Anyway, let me give a quick shout out and then we'll get into my presentation. And yes, I have a presentation, so we're going to get into it. Shout out to Macy quickly. She gave $2 and she said, whoops, that's not it. My PC is moving so slow I can't even get it on the... Jesus, come on, man. That's it. Control of the written word wields power. Absolutely, absolutely. I believe it was Napoleon who said history is but a fable agreed upon. So I agree with that. Absolutely. Let me see. Just make sure there's no others that I've missed out before we get started. Boom, 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 boom. Ah, there's one more. Thank you, Dregger, very much. He says Leguizamo is a rat and has nothing to do with us. I think that is that Hispanic guy that's talking. Yeah, absolutely. I wasn't trying to defend him, but it's the irony once again that even he would be or Hispanic people will be a much closer match for what the ancient Mediterranean looked like than these Northern European, these cold climate Europeans who are now trying to claim that they were the original people of North Africa. The original people of the Sahara were white blondes. Yeah. White blondes were the original people of the Sahara, according to these people. Let's get into this. Boom, 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 boom. And hopefully this shouldn't take too long. So I'm going to just put my presentation on the screen and we'll get going. Okay. It shouldn't take too long. All right. So hope everyone can see it. And let's get cracking on this topic. So Helen of Troy, was she a good casting or not? Well, the first thing that we're going to highlight is the fact that Hollywood has been on a grind in recent years. And I say recent years because I really feel like it kind of like stepped into fever pitch in the last 20 to 30 years, in that they began making, and if you go back through movies, you'll realize how correct this statement is. They began making all the ancient Greeks and Romans blonde. Like it wasn't enough for them to just be white. They started making them blonde. So one of the early examples of this. Many of you won't remember that he did a movie about Alexander the Great, and Colin Farrell was cast for this movie. Now, Colin Farrell was very much very popular at this time when he made the movie. The movie entirely flopped, and I would actually argue that one of the reasons this movie flopped is because people didn't like the fact they made Alexander blonde. Colin Farrell is a natural dark-haired individual. Okay, he's natural dark-haired individual, and for a European, kind of like he's Irish descent, but for a European, he is kind of like, you know, dark-haired, dark eyebrowed, you know, one of those people that is, you know, darker than your average kind of like pale British Irish person. Okay, they could have left him natural, and that would have been a closer fit. It wouldn't have been anywhere ideal, but in terms of what we have historically about Alexander, you could argue that was justified, but that wasn't enough for them. They had to turn him and make him lily white. So it's like, yeah, we've cast a white guy already, but he's not white enough. And this is a part of the propaganda that Hollywood has been pushing. Wokeness, white wokeness, yeah, which they've tried to throw on the black community. They tried to say that we're the ones pushing it, or there's some big agenda, but no, actually, you guys have just been spoiled by false history. So I'm just going to quickly zone this mosaic is from Pompeii, and it's said to be Alexander. I don't believe it's actually Alexander, and this is why I want to show you guys the whole thing, because if you go to the left on this mosaic, load of Alexander's army is missing. Okay, now everything in Pompeii, they date to, I think, I can't remember what it is. If it's like 90 AD or something, someone tell me when Pompeii are up to. I can't remember, but they date to being before a certain date. So most of it dates to kind of like early BC years. This, if you have a look at this mosaic, you'll see that everyone apart from this one individual is visible, and they've just declared that this mosaic is a war between, I think, the ancient Greeks and the Thracians, if I remember correctly. And they've just declared that this one here is Alexander, but we don't know if it's Alexander. Okay, he's not directly labeled as Alexander. In fact, we're not even 100% sure that this is Alexander's army. But you know what they're like. They, you know, they found an individual, even though you can't see anybody else in his army. They could have been any color. It's just like, no, this is Alexander, and this is the only kind of like nearly, it wouldn't even be contemporaneous, but this is the only nearly contemporaneous portrait we have of Alexander. Now, let me throw a question out of there first of all for all of you guys, just on a common sense basis. Guys, we cover ancient Kemet on this channel a lot. Tell me what, and you've seen the Ptolemaic dynasty, okay? Numerous portraits of every single Ptolemaic ruler. What is the likelihood that the greatest conqueror, and arguably, you know, the greatest, one of the greatest emperors or rulers, whatever, of a civilization of Greece, the great conqueror, but there's not a single portrait of him anywhere? You guys tell me what the likelihood of that is. Okay, there's obviously an issue with the historicity of this character called Alexander the Great. Okay, and we don't have any depictions of him. But let's say, for the sake of argument, this is him. The point being that the actual real depiction of Colin Farrell without his hair being peroxide blonded would have been a much better fit for Alexander the Great. But no, they had to make him blonde. This is what they do. Let's carry on. Okay. More recently, has anyone watched the new Gladiator movie? Yeah. The new Gladiator movie had Caracalla. Now, bear in mind, Caracalla is the son of Septimus Severus. Septimus Severus is depicted here. Okay. A very typical ancient North African kind of look, or at least one of the phenotypes you'd find in ancient North Africa. I found this image for comparatively something that fits in terms of kind of phenotype, hair texture, something that looks relatively similar to this image of Septimus Severus, a very dark-skinned individual. Okay, and the likely appearance of their son, I would say maybe this individual from the Fayum, okay, who actually is kind of like probably of Greek ancestry, because these are the people with Greek and Hellenic names in the Fayum, these original Fayum portraits. So this one over here maybe is what Caracalla might have looked like, being kind of half this and half that. Yeah. Now, we also have busts and, you know, statues of Caracalla showing you clearly hair texture, features, okay, matching this kind of phenotype, which I said might be a fair depiction of what he looks like. Maybe even either of these two individuals would be a good fit. Who did they cast? Not only did they cast a white person, they once again made his hair red. Bear in mind, this is an emperor of North Africa. And they put white powder all over his face to make him even whiter than his natural white face. This is the new Gladiator. Well, save me. This is Gladiator 2 movie. Why was no one crying about historical accuracy when these castings were done? Why did no one have a problem with the way, or none of these new guys have a problem with the way Colin Farrell looks as Alexander, or Caracalla, the North African emperor, looks like this goofy, pasty-skinned, red-haired individual, none of which is contemporaneous, none of which is supported by anything. This is just an attempt, once again, to shift people's historical lenses. They're trying to get you used to the over-whitening. Now I'm going to throw out another one, okay? Now I could do this all day, obviously, but I just want to throw out kind of like ones that are contemporaneous and regional so that we've got a good comparison for critique before we move on. Now, the next one is Troy. Now, to be clear, Troy is a movie that I like, okay? Very much like the movie Troy. Okay. I've watched it many, many times, all right? It's a good movie. I'm not going to lie. Like, it's a good movie. Brad Pitt really surprised me. Now, those of you who perhaps don't remember the release of Troy as well as I do, this movie also came out with a lot of controversy, a lot of controversy. The first thing is that the casting of Brad Pitt didn't go down too well, because before they cast Brad Pitt, Achilles, so Brad Pitt, who played Achilles was seen as being this big warrior. Everyone had kind of this Herculean depiction of what Achilles would look like, because you have this story obviously of Achilles being dipped in this magic river when he was young, being held by his ankle. And the whole thing about Achilles before this movie was made is that Achilles is actually impervious. That's his superpower. So his superpower is that he couldn't be inflicted with any wounds or anything like that. We don't really know what he looked like physically, but everyone thought of this man who would be walking around with a giant axe and swinging it around, you know, standing head and shoulders above everybody else. But that's actually not what they did. They came out with this more slick, fast-moving version of Achilles. And to be honest with you, it worked really well. Yeah, it was an excellent adaptation of how Achilles could be. And I think they did it really brilliantly. And I think Brad Pitt's performance was very, very good as a warrior. Some of the acting was ropey, I'm not gonna lie, but as a warrior and as kind of like a very unique kind of as a very unique military person, now his movements, everything was really, really good, top-notch stuff. Why did they make him blonde? Why did they make him blonde? There was no need to make Achilles blonde. Okay, they could have made him darker haired. They know what region of the earth that this took place in. They know for a fact that the ancient Greeks were likely a dark-haired people, a dark people, okay? But they made a absolutely critical decision to make him blonde. And this is where the idea of Helen of Troy looking like this German, by the way, this actress is German, woman came from. Because before she was cast as Helen of Troy, everyone who kind of like, oh, historical accuracy, wouldn't have cast a blonde woman. But they get this blonde woman, and now everybody is used to seeing blonde people being cast as Greek people. But you have to understand, this has been a very concerted effort by the media to push this idea of whiteness being associated with ancient Greece, and not just any whiteness, Nordic whiteness. Okay, this is Nordic whiteness. This is Nordic whiteness. This is Nordic whiteness. They are pushing Nordic whiteness onto an Aegean civilization. And this is why there's been so much reaction, because they're seeing people kind of like say, actually, you know, we've kind of maybe over whiteified this civilization. Let's balance the book a little bit. No, they don't want to. They want to push this modern idealism upon, and now everyone's just accepting. Even when I've seen like recent reconstructions of like emperors now, and they've just moved away from giving them dark hair. They're always giving them blonde and brunette hair. It's like, what history are you guys reading? Seriously, what history are you reading? People native to that, even I say native in inverted commas, but people native to that region today do not have this appearance. It's not okay, but that's what they're doing. So anyway, let's get on to some history now. We've had a little bit of a preamble, a bit of preface. We kind of understand where the media environment is that maybe is birthing a lot of this hatred, but let's see what the history says. So first of all, there's kind of like a circle jerk historical fantasy taking place, okay? And the important thing to understand is that white people think they are the center of the modern world, but they are the center of the modern world, but they're not the center of history, okay? They are a recent iteration when it comes to history. The entire history that they're believing in is based on fictional characters or the appropriation of characters. So this whole idea of, oh, Helen of Troy should look like this, that's just appropriation. It's not historically factual. You've got nothing to support that perspective. You just want it to be so because you've been in control of the media so long, you've been able to convert people to that way of thinking. But that's not supported. None of what you say is historically or anthropologically supported. And more importantly, which we'll come on to, Helen of Troy's race is irrelevant. But one thing for certain is that she would not have been white in the modern interpretation of whiteness is, okay? What's happened is modern Western Europeans have been convinced by their own propaganda, their own media propaganda about the way people looked historically, that they've lost any kind of idea of biological sense. The Sahara is the hottest place in the world. You can't even survive there now. Why do you think you would have survived there historically? What makes you think you would have survived in the Mediterranean historically? What makes you think that you would have survived in any of these regions historically? You would have not. Nothing, like, you haven't gotten biologically weaker in the modern times. Okay, if you're gonna push this entire blonde, strawberry blonde hair, blue-eyed things, let's get this within historical context. Because you're pushing blonde hair, blue eyes, you're also pushing outfits, yeah, which expose your arms and expose your how long do you think Germanic Helen of Troy is going to last in the hottest, some of the hottest regions on the planet wearing the outfit? It's all well and good her being under an umbrella, white-armed Helen of Troy, yeah? She'll be melanomic Helen of Troy after 2 months. Let's be real, okay? So you have to understand what you're pushing is a fiction that is not supported historically. Let me give a big shout out to Stephen Carter. Shout out to you. He said, I'm one of those red-pilled guys, my dear brother. Besides the main topic being extremely important, you give me something to think about with respect to male privilege and the corniness of defending what does not need to be defended. Well, brother, you've made my day. You made my day. I'm glad you didn't just get offended, because many people would have just got offended and been like, screw this guy, but you've allowed the words to settle in. Hey, we can have further conversations about that, but I appreciate the fact that I've made you think about that, because it is something that I do think about. But I appreciate that. And thank you very much for your $50. Much, much appreciated. Let's carry on. So the Aegean, and this is critical, guys. Okay, before we move on, yeah, the Aegean, that's kind of that region of the Mediterranean, has gotten exponentially whiter since the time of Homer. I'm going to read that again. The Aegean has gotten exponentially whiter, not darker. Okay, these places aren't getting darker over time. They always try and push this idea, oh, well, slaves are moving slow, slavery, all the slaves, we can't control, oh, everyone's getting respectfully, you guys have expanded from one part of the earth into all of the continents within the last 300 to 400 years. You're the most expansive race on the planet. The white race is the most expansive race on the planet. please do not fall for the idea that these guys are all impotent and and their numbers are falling. They're fooling the world with that nonsense. They are the most expansive race on the planet, and they're doing nothing but expanding. Okay, there is no single, I would say, 2 decades where their numbers have fallen. Okay, white people are a growing population, and they're also growing territorially. That's just a fact. Okay, I'm not trying to push any race wars. That is just a fact. Okay, and they're making this idea that the world's getting browner. It really is not. Okay, the Aegean has gotten exponentially whiter since the time of Homer. This is the whitest the Mediterranean has ever been in history. So the idea of it being whiter historically, and this is the idea that they're pushing. Oh well, before the Moors came, we were like lily white, and then they invaded us and made us brown. I was like, you guys are not native to North Africa. Can you just stop being stupid? There are no blonde natives, no blue-eyed natives to North Africa. Okay, that is what you call a biological error. Yeah, that that evolution could not make. Okay, it's unsupported. It's unsupported and unsupportable. Okay, the only thing that is enabling your current expansion is modern technology into the areas that you historically would not have been able to survive. Okay, so this is the whitest the Mediterranean has ever been in history. So the idea of it being whiter historically is not only biologically unlikely, it's historically unsupported. Okay, that's important for us to know. So let's move on. So what did the Greeks think of modern white races? This is a really important question to have. Okay, well, I'm going to let this guy tell you. All right, I'm not going to say it because I could talk about it, but you know what, sometimes you let you let others do the talking for you. So I'm going to play a video quickly so you guys can get a nice clear picture on what the ancient Greeks thought about those northern Europeans who seem to think they are the same race.
Christopher Nolan's adaptation of The Odyssey has been raising some eyebrows since its announcement. However, in the...
Okay, so I'm just going to pause that and I'm just going to get to our timestamp. Spare me one moment. I have never had a PC this slow. This is so painful. Okay. My timestamp is over. This is correct. This is moving forward. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to move it here. All right. And let's let this play.
Nolan, what the f are you doing?
The people who are often presented as being alternatives to Helen of Troy, like Sydney Sweeney, she came from a region that the Greeks hated. Titus Andronicus is a play written by Shakespeare, where the Romans come to an agreement with their enemies, the Goths. The Goths refer to people north of ancient Rome, which at that time included Germany, Norway, and Sweden. And they're treated as tasteless, cruel, ugly, savage monsters. In the world of ancient Greece, Sydney Sweeney would not be the height of beauty. She would be an object of revulsion. They would hate her. They would be disgusted by her. The very thought of her would make them nauseous because they'd associate her tall, lean body and blonde hair and blue eyes with savagery, with monstrous behavior. This is an element of the mythology and culture you're not taking into account because you're not looking at the Odyssey as a work of ancient Greek literature. Our perspective of accounts as a savage and a beautiful goddess are very different now than they were when the Odyssey was written. Even the idea of a hero is different because a hero was not the same thing then as it is now. Heroes were not selfless. They did not always fight for the greater good.
I'm going to pause it there. And I think it deserves a bit of a rewind, that one, because I could have said this, by the way. But sometimes it's nicer letting someone else say things like this that people might feel are inflammatory. So it's nice that someone who's actually a member of that racial group can be honest about history. And this is not they are not the only people who had this perspective. Okay. Diop speaks about when he saw the tomb of I think it was it Maspero? I have to look. It was either no, I think it was Champollion. When Champollion first saw the tomb of Seti the First, he was so embarrassed by what he saw because the people that he descended from were depicted as blonde beasts, savage. Now, obviously, all of this has been carved out. You can't find it anymore. It's been a part of, when you go to the tomb of Seti the First, how loads of it is just got concrete smeared and it's all been chiseled off the wall, like someone's gone in there and went, ah! Well, that would be your Northern Europeans. They've gone in there and they got rid of that evidence of the blonde beast. But fortunately, we still have the writings. And he said exactly what this guy's saying. He said that the ancient Egyptians saw these blonde people, who drew all over their bodies with blonde hair and with were savage, a savage, beastly people. This coming from the words of Champollion. So these are people who belong to these groups who are very, very open and honest enough to say, historically, they're not the same. Okay, the ancient Greeks were open about it, and I'm going to be showing you quotes as we go through what they said about these people who are now trying to claim that, oh, the beautiful Helen of Troy would have looked just like a German. It's like, no, she wouldn't. Oh, no, she the hell wouldn't. You clearly haven't read history for you to have that idea. Let's go back and watch this guy's, because I think he cooked, and I think he deserves another go, another stab, in case you missed it the first time.
Included Germany, Norway, and Sweden, and north of ancient Rome, which at that time included Germany, Norway, and Sweden, and they're treated as tasteless, cruel, ugly, savage monsters. In the world of ancient...
Rewind. I'm not going to hold back because these guys don't hold back with their insults. So let's go again.
Is the Goths. The Goths refer to people north of ancient Rome, which at that time included Germany, Norway, and Sweden, and they're treated as tasteless, cruel, ugly, savage monsters.
The visuals are nice as well. Let's bring that back one more time. I think people didn't hear it in the back.
With their enemies, the Goths. The Goths refer...
He said the enemies. Let's bring that back one more time because I think we missed it in the back.
Come to an agreement with their enemies, the Goths. The Goths refer to people...
I'm sorry, did you hear that? Metatron, I know you watch my content, so I'm going to bring that back in case you missed that one more time. Okay?
Come to an agreement with their enemies, the Goths. The Goths refer to people north of ancient Rome, which at that time included Germany, Norway, and Sweden, and they're treated as tasteless, cruel, ugly, savage monsters. In the world of ancient Greece, Sydney Sweeney would not be the height of beauty. She would be an object of revulsion.
An object of revulsion. Jeez Louise. We need to bring that back one more time. Because I think that needs to be said.
Ugly, savage monsters. In the world of ancient Greece, Sydney Sweeney would not be the height of beauty. She would be an object of revulsion. They would hate her. They would be disgusted by her.
Bro, he's going. Those are strong words. Say them again. Say it again.
Sydney Sweeney would not be the height of beauty. She would be an object of revulsion. They would hate her. They would be disgusted by her. The very thought of her would make them nauseous because it associated her tall, lean body and blonde hair and blue eyes with savagery, with monstrous behavior. This is an element of the mythology and culture you're not taking into account because you're not looking at the Odyssey as a work of ancient Greek literature. Our perspective of accounts as a savage and a beautiful goddess are very different now than they were when the Odyssey was written. Even the idea of a hero is different because a hero was not the same thing then as it is now.
By the way, the term word hero that we have in the modern English language is actually a term that comes from ancient Greek heros. And I actually think there's enough evidence to suggest that the ancient Greek heros comes from the ancient Egyptian word heri or heru. Yeah. And I'm going to show some proof of that as well. In fact, I've got a very, very strong case proving that those terms, that term hero or heros, which they had in ancient Greek, was a direct borrowing from the ancient Egyptian language, and it has relationship to obviously the house of Heru, but also has the relationship to the Yoruba word Ori or Orisha. Okay, and I'm going to prove that a little bit later during the stream. Okay, but even the language, the influence of the language is very, very strong.
Heroes were not selfless. They did not always fight for the greater good. They just committed great acts that changed the course of history. The Odyssey as a work is thousands of years old, and much like King Arthur, it has been retold.
So we'll leave it there. I just wanted to kind of like paint that picture there, because I could have said that, but if I was sitting here talking about she would have been an object of revulsion, she was disgusting, she was hideous, you know what they would be calling me. So I didn't say it. Yeah. I didn't say it. I just showed you the dude who did. All right, but let's carry on now. So we got an idea now of what they thought of those people, those very people who are, you know, seem to be hell-bent. Let's now see what the actual history is, because people are talking about, oh, it's not historically accurate. Oh, it's not historically accurate. Well, let's see what the actual history is. Is there any actual history to glean from this? Okay, first things first. Okay, there's a reason why Greeks unashamedly revered Nile Valley culture. Okay, and that reason is that Kemet founded Greece. I'm going to repeat, Kemet founded Greece. So there would be no ancient Greece if it wasn't for ancient Egyptian founders. Okay, now this argument could come from many directions, because it's not just a single founding event. There's multiple individuals, multiple dynasties, and multiple city-states that were founded directly from ancient Kemet. Now, the Argives, or the Argive dynasty, also known as the Taminid dynasties, okay, claim descent from Heracles. Now you're going to say, well, what does that mean? What does that mean? What does descent from Heracles mean? Well, Hercules, as you might know him, is an African demigod. I'm going to say that again. Heracles is an African demigod. He comes from a city that used to be called Herishaf, and he was a converted ancient Egyptian ancestor, essentially. So Heracles is absolutely African. I'm going to be proving this, by the way, guys. I'm not giving you just like little tidbits where there's my opinion. There's copious amounts of evidence for this. And it's just that this evidence has been ignored by modern historians who want to drive a wedge or create distance between what is ancient Greece and what was ancient Africa and or ancient Egypt / Ethiopia. Okay. The Achaemenid dynasty claimed descent through Egypt, though through more than one line. Now for this, I want to actually play you a video where I actually showed up on a channel, one of these self-hating channels, whose name I don't want to I say I don't want to state. I actually don't even remember their name, but they're morons who put a lot of self-hate out there, but I totally cooked them. But I want to show you this because it's actually very relevant to this discussion. So I'm going to quickly put this video up so you guys can enjoy this absolute roasting. This is a little bit of a little bit of humor, okay, and it's about less than 5 minutes long, so we'll just play it, or maybe it's about 5 minutes long. It's on my other channel, the King Mono Show. So let's go through this so you guys can get the reason why I'm looking at the statue. First of all, when it comes to, I'll be honest with you right now. By the way, just to give you a little bit of a background on this, I turned up on their channel because they kept making videos about me and trying to disrespect me. And you guys know that I'm I'm always there for the smoke. So I turned up on their channel and I was trying to discuss certain things with them. I was being as respectful as possible. They were being incredibly disrespectful throughout, but it ended up biting them in the ass because everything I said came out to be provably true by their own sources, by the way. So anyway, I'm going to let it play. This is about 5 minutes long, and I want you to enjoy this little edit. Why I'm looking at the statue. First of all, when it comes to, I'll be honest with you right now. When it comes to the ancient Greeks, I definitely think there's a lot of racial ambiguity when it comes to that civilization. Okay, I think they're quite open about the fact that they were a mixed civilization. I think their geography suggests that they were a mixed civilization, and also their constant integration with Kemet would have had an effect on them. So I don't think that this lily white civilization that a lot of people, so when you say, oh yeah, Alexander the Great definitely wasn't black, he might not have been bliggity black, but there might have been something there, what the ancient Greeks said about themselves, and they clearly placed themselves racially between, like phenotypically between Africa and Europe. They place themselves there quite often, actually. So I 100% stand by everything that I'm saying here. I haven't changed my view at all, to be honest with you. So that's kind of my perspective on this.
This shit just got ridiculous.
Okay.
2 days later.
Right, the Greeks and the Romans were fascinated by the links between cultures. Right, the Greeks actually thought there were several different Greek myths or sort of mythological threads that claimed that Greek city-states were founded by refugees from Egypt. Right, the Greeks saw themselves as the inheritors of Egyptian culture, right?
Those line, goddamn time wasting sons of bitches. Sons of bitches.
Let me say this real quick. Did you say Egyptian refugees may have, some myths say Egyptian refugees may have formed Greece? Did you say that? Interesting. Okay. All right.
Yeah, the ancient, the whole like Argive dynasty traced its origins to a civil war in Egypt that led to an Egyptian king fleeing and moving to Greece. It's kind of an involved story. I mean,
it's interesting.
But,
let me say this real quick. Did you say Egyptian refugees may have, some myths say Egyptian refugees may have formed Greece? Did you say that? Interesting. Okay. All right.
yeah, the ancient, the whole like Argive dynasty traced its origins to a civil war in Egypt that led to an Egyptian king fleeing and moving to Greece. It's kind of an involved story. I mean,
it's interesting.
But
yesterday,
that's a very extreme description of him, and I don't think he would define himself as a total entire white man. In fact,
would you define him as a total entire white man?
No.
Would you define him as a white man?
Hold on, Alexander was mixed with African now.
Do you know where
Macedonian?
Do you know where Greece is?
Hey, I'm done.
Do you know where
conversation is?
Of course, we know where Greece is.
Do you know
what's
where
the
Greece
point?
is? So,
yeah, what's the point?
2 days later.
Look it up.
you know, so the Greeks themselves were aware that they were drawing on it. I mean, obviously, right? They were worshiping Isis. You know, there's this.
Absolutely.
So to say that Egypt is not contributing to the growth and development of what becomes Western culture would be I mean, even the Greeks themselves, they knew it, they said it. They were proud of it. Right? You know, the idea that Africa cannot be the source of anything good is not one that the ancient world would have accepted. It certainly wouldn't have been their default position, the way it was for Petrie.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Where was Alexander? Wait. Where was Alexander from? Stop. Stick a pin. Where's Alexander from, brother?
Yo.
Thank you.
Macedonian.
His father was Macedonian Greek. His mama was a Macedonian Greek. What is going on here? This nigga just said he was African. He just said, whoa.
I said the location of Greece and the interchange. See, this is the thing. Here's the hilarious thing. You guys, you're suggesting that only Egypt. You're suggesting that only Egypt, out of all of the nations in the Mediterranean, had a mixed population.
Yeah, the ancient, the whole like Argive dynasty traced its origins to a civil war in Egypt that led to an Egyptian king fleeing and moving to Greece. It's kind of an involved story. I mean, if we walked into ancient Egypt, everybody would have been, most people would have been more or less black by our standards anyway. It's what you want to see in people.
Right. Man, that's a good answer. We're gonna have to break that answer all the way down. Maybe.
So there you go. I had a bit of fun with that. That's like that's like a couple of years old now. Had a bit of fun with that, but this is the kind of like individuals that I have to interact with. But the reason I showed that was not just to have a laugh, although I hope you did enjoy it, because I enjoyed putting that up. You should see them afterwards. Oh my God, like he was calling us Uncle Ruckus, man. This guy's got no damn respect. I was like, you guys, you didn't hear how rude you were to me when I came on your channel. And now you're trying to play the victim. Get the hell out of here, man. But anyway, that's just one. That's just one. And yeah, I agree with you. It doesn't get old. But there's another one that I want to show you as well. And this one's serious, obviously. This isn't mine. And this is about the black founding of Athens as well. So many of you will know the story of Senusret I, okay, who was a 12th dynasty ruler. I believe the founder of the 12th dynasty, but he also was said to have founded Athens. Oh, by the way, I haven't even put a picture of him up here, so let me not be sloppy. Let me share with you an image of what Senusret I looks like. So in case there's any if there's any doubt about who this individual was. Okay, there he is. Yeah. In case there's any doubt about who Senusret I is. Okay, it's almost impossible to find an image of Senusret I that isn't unequivocally and indisputably 100% certainly a black man. Okay, lips that you can, I mean, there's not really any debate to be had. By the way, I've got excellent, this one's in Luxor. I've got excellent pictures of this particular one that happens to be in Cairo as well, which I'll pop on the screen. But he was I think the guys at PK would say a whole black man. Yeah. Let's just say Senusret I was a whole black man. Yeah, without any shadow of a doubt. Okay, definitely a whole black man. So let's just quickly watch this video that I want to share with you, because I think this is a really good explanation of, I hope it plays directly. That would be awesome if it does. Content's unavailable. Why? Why is it unavailable? Let me try again. We'll try again. Oh, it's unavailable. That's really annoying. Oh, I was looking forward to that playing. Okay, well, I can explain it anyway, regardless. So it's not that big a deal. So Senusret I, in ancient Greek tradition, the founder of Athens was a ruler called Kekrops, and Kekrops was one of the throne names of Senusret I, which came from his title, which is Kar Kepar Ra. So I'm trying to get my slideshow back on the screen again. I guess here. Yeah. So it comes from his title Kar Kepar Ra, and this isn't like fringe, history. This is something that the ancient Greeks not only supported, they were proud of the fact that this Egyptian ruler came and founded Athens. So what you have as you look through ancient Greek history is you have these multiple lines of ancestry tracing back to ancient Egyptian rulers. In fact, there's an idea that Min might have been the founder of Minoa. Okay, and then we have Mycenaros or Mykonos. You know, Mykonos in Cyprus, I think it is now, but historically Greece. Okay, Mykonos, or the Mycene, was likely founded by Menkaure, whose name or whose Greek name was Mycenaros. So you have these multiple lines of Egyptian rulers founding these Aegean societies that end up becoming what we today regard as ancient Greece. Okay, someone said Crete. Thank you very much for that, RJ Mackenzie. Okay, so that video gave it a really good explanation, but I want to kind of like carry on because there's a lot to cover today. So that moves us on to this whole controversy about who was Helen. Okay, so we've got this Helen of Troy. Who was she? Was she white, blonde? Was she dark-skinned? Was she in the middle? Does it even matter? Do we have a picture of who this individual is? So I'm going to just grab my copy of the Iliad. Okay. And I put chapter and verse there. So we have Helen associated as the child of Zeus. So to be clear about who Helen was the child of Zeus. Okay, she was Zeus's offspring, so she's essentially a demigod, okay, or demigoddess, however you want to phrase it. And she's referred to in multiple times, well, twice in the Iliad and once in the Odyssey, as someone who sprung from Zeus. Okay. Now, her mother is someone called Leda, but Leda is very barely mentioned. And if you want to learn more about Leda, you have to look at later Greek literature. So the one thing that we do know is that Helen is definitely being presented as a demigod, okay, someone who has divine ancestry. And this is very important when it comes to the way Helen is being described in the Iliad and the Odyssey. Okay, this becomes very important to understanding who she is. Now, let's carry on. I put who was well Helen White. I can't bother to change that right now. In fact, let me change that because that's gonna annoy me. Was Helen White? Greek literature does occasionally employ direct color oppositions. Now, this part I need you guys to engage with because these terms are going to come up quite a bit today. So we have this term lukos, okay, which I'm hovering over at the moment, which is the term that is often translated to white. However, lukos has a lot of different meanings in ancient Greek. It has to be noted that white is one of the translations, but lukos plays a very multifaceted role when it comes to language in ancient Greek. So I've written down some of the different things it can mean. It can mean bright, it can mean shining, it can mean fair, it can mean pale, it can mean radiant, it can mean light toned, it can mean pure, and it can mean virgin. So it has all of these different meanings. Okay. Now, calling it white is a euphemization and a simplification. And oftentimes when it comes to translating, simplifications can be really, really useful. So I'm not going to criticize that the term is used as white, but you also have to understand how idioms were used in the ancient Greek world in order to get a very clear picture about what is being stated. The next term beneath lukos that I've put there is melas, okay, which you guys would have come from. Melas and melanes, which both translate to black or dark. Obviously, you know, it's where we get the word melanin from, okay? So we have melas there as well. Then we have a couple of other terms like kianios, which means dark blue, and we have theos, which means dusky gray or brown. These ones are not so important today. But it's important, like I said to you, that the word lukos doesn't always literally mean white. Okay, there's an overriding use of it as being kind of like the color of the untouched, the pure, bright, shining, virgin, those kinds of things. So why is this important? Well, one of the grifts that you'll hear people arguing about is that Iliad, okay, in several parts, by the way, describes Helen as being white-armed. Now, the term white-armed is actually leukolenos. Okay, so this is the term that's used to describe her. Leukolenos. All right, and it's used quite a lot. And so this is the thing is that, you know, you'll hear the grifters all saying, oh, well, you know, she was described as a white woman. That's not correct. In Homeric and wider archaic Greek literature, the epithet white-armed is used overwhelmingly for elite women and goddesses. If white-armed truly was a description of the race of the individual, we'd see it being used essentially for everybody who was white in the book. But you'll find that the term leukolenos is only used for women and only really used for women who are either nobility or gods. So it's not used for Odysseus at all, okay? It's not used for Ulysses. It's not used for any of the other characters. It's not used for Achilles. None of them are called white-armed. So the white-armed, someone's already mentioned as well, could mean glowing, but it's more likely a state of kind of like purity, something that hasn't been, you know, left, you know, exposed to the elements, you know, exposed to the burning sun, people who are soft of skin. And to give you some examples, think about words that are used in the British language that we have such idioms for. So to just give you a couple of examples, let me see if I can find some. I think I wrote some down just to give you guys a bit of an example. I thought I wrote them down and I'd have all gone missing. But think about so here's a good one. Think about when someone is called green. Okay, and we use this in English and we use it, I think, in Americans as well. So you say, oh, he's a bit green. What does that mean? Does that mean that the person is literally green? No, it means they're naive. It means they're new to something. Okay, that's an example of an idiom. This is where you use phrases such as white-armed, okay, to describe someone who's rich and not exposed to the elements. I had a few others written down. I had some good ones written down that I literally cooked up and now I can't find them. That's sod's law. I'll probably find it later. Let's move on. Feel free, by the way, to pop them in the chat, by the way, guys, if you can think of other idioms that use kind of color as a way of describing someone's state or personage, but not being a literal description. Okay, but we'll carry on. Let me move on. Don't want to freeze too much. So it's important to note also that I mentioned earlier that males are not described as being white-armed. So if you're going to use that as some kind of victory, then you have to also explain why males are not described as being white-armed. And this is where we come into something that's even more interesting. Okay. Thank you, Nerd Large. Nerd Large says fair. Fair is sometimes a term that's used to describe something that is supple. Greeks like to use the word fair. Okay, once again, the same in a similar way to white-armed, not meaning fair as in light, but fair as in supple, as in soft. So you have once again this kind of like idiomatic use of the term fair. Now this is interesting because this is an argument that I raised against Metatron. Okay, and this is I've basically said to this, what race was Odysseus? And for you guys, I want you to sit with me as I read these passages out, because this is really important, because it will give you an idea about how if you take color literally, we have to take it across the board. And why is that important? It's because this piece of text I'm about to read to you is from the Odyssey. So let me read. When he had washed his whole body and anointed himself with oil and had put on the clothing which the unmarried maid had given him, then Athena, by the way, Athena is another African goddess, we'll come on to her shortly, the daughter of Zeus, African god, made him taller to look upon and mightier. Okay, so she's making him taller to look upon and mightier. And from his head she made the locks to flow in curls like unto the hyacinth flower. But come, I will make you unknown to all mortals. Okay, so here she's making it clear she's placing a disguise upon him. I will listen closely here. I will wrinkle the fair skin of your supple limbs. Once again, that word fair, people will hear that and go, oh, that means he was pale. Bear with me. I will wrinkle the fair skin of your supple limbs and destroy the flaxen hair from off your head. Flaxen is another word that is being used to describe and say, okay, it means light, but flaxen doesn't always mean light. It can mean literally light as in fluffy, as in baby hairs, but we'll come on to that. I will destroy the flaxen hair from off your head and clothe you in a ragged garment, such that one would feel strong repugnance to see a man clothed in that way. And I will dim your two eyes that were before so beautiful that you may appear mean in the sight of all suitors, and of your wife, and of your son, whom you did leave in your living room. She withered the fair flesh on his supple limbs, and destroyed the flaxen hair from off his head, and about all his limbs she put the skin of an aged old man. Now, when I had this discussion, or I should say debate with Metatron before, he left this out. He tried to claim as though there was no, it was just when she's returning into being dark, which we'll come to in a moment, that it was just her making him young again. He missed out this entire story of this spell being placed upon him to age him rapidly and to basically place him in a disguise. But let me carry on. And she dimmed his two eyes that were before so beautiful, and clothed him in outer clothing, a vile, ragged cloak, and a tunic, tattered garments, and foul begrimed with filthy smoke. And about him she cast the great skin of a swift hind stripped of the hair, and she gave him a staff and a miserable wallet full of holes slung by a twisted cord. So when the two had thus taken counsel together, they parted, And thereupon the goddess went to goodly Lacedaemon to fetch the son of Ulysses. Now, this is jumping ahead a few chapters, and we're going to jump straight in now, okay, with the resolution to this tale. Nor will I myself be long away from you, for I am eager for the battle. With this, Athena touched him with her golden wand. Pay attention, guys, this is the important part. A well-washed cloak and a tunic she first of all cast about his breast. So she, remember, she gave him an old cloak and an old tunic before. You can see up here, a vile, ragged cloak and a tunic. So now she's giving him a well-washed cloak and a tunic she first of all cast about his breast. And she increased his stature and his youthful bloom. So she's now restoring his height. So she's restored his tunic. She's restored his height. Now, listen to the next chapter, guy, or the next sentence, guys. Once more, he grew dark of color. Once again, the word melas being used here, dark of color. And his cheeks filled out, and dark grew his beard about his chin. Now, bear in mind, she said earlier, I will wrinkle the fair skin on your supple limbs. So that proves the word fair there had nothing to do with color. It was to do with the softness of his limbs. Because when she's gone to restore him, she's restored him and made him dark of color. Okay, she's restored the darkness of his limbs. That's very, very, and he made his cheeks fill out. Then, when she had thought thus, she departed, but Odysseus went into the hut, and his dear son marveled, and seized with fear, turned his eyes aside, lest it should be a god. And this is significant as well, the fact that he thought that his son thought he was a god, because you'll find as we go on today that the gods of Greece were black-skinned. And this is something they do not discuss with people. And he spoke and addressed him with winged words. And there we go. So I just wanted to read you that chapter to show you, A, how the term fair was used to describe something that clearly wasn't color, because in the conclusion, he was returned and he was made dark of color, and color was restored to his hair also. So that's to be very, very clear. So now you have that entire story in full context. Okay, we're getting a picture here of what's going on in terms of the characters in ancient Greece. So first of all, having read that, have you heard anybody, because I heard people say, well, casting, was it Matt Damon who's playing Odysseus? That's a good casting. Does Matt Damon look like someone who is dark of color, as Odysseus is described here? Does he? Anybody? Does he look like someone who's black of color? Because that's the word that was used. He's black of color. Now, once again, I'm not making the argument that Odysseus was a pure black man. But clearly here, if we're going to use that argument that leukolenos, the term used to describe white-armed Helen of Troy, means she was white, then equally we have to also agree that Odysseus is black. Or we can settle on the fact that the ancient Greeks used language more figuratively and more idiomically than perhaps we give them credit, which I would say is probably the more reasonable way to look at this. I wouldn't jump and say Odysseus is black. At the same time, I think it would be stupid to claim that Helen of Troy was black, especially considering the further data that I'm going to give you. Let's carry on. So, how did the ancient Greeks define themselves as a race? Let's look in some ancient Greek literature. Let's start off with the Physiognomica, okay? And this is the Becker numbering. So this is Physiognomica chapter 812. So this is dated to about the 3rd century BCE or later, though traditionally transmitted under Aristotle's name. So it's one of these Aristotelian works, but it's not thought to be Aristotle himself. He did write a work actually, or a few verses that are very similar to this, but this one is still dated to the 3rd century BCE. So listen to the quote. It goes as thus: those who are too black are cowards, like the Egyptians and Ethiopians. Whoa, we're not even talking about that subject, but isn't that convenient? The Egyptians aren't just black, they are too black. Yeah, too black. Yeah, to be clear, 2 black. So if there's any hateful E4E people on this live stream, because I know you guys can't get enough of me, in the Physiognomica, 3rd century BC, Greek literature, the Egyptians and Ethiopians are seen as basically one and the same, and they are classified as 2 black. But let's carry on. Those who are 2 white are also cowards, as in the case of women. Now, this is quite interesting because we've gone from 2 black being the Egyptians and the Ethiopians, but then 2 white also cowards, and they related that strangely to women, which is weird. Okay, you would have thought they were talking about the whites up north. Okay, but they said women, which once again gets you thinking about the fair armed. So talking about the ones, so they're talking about, it sounds like all they're talking about in this particular kind of verse and piece of literature, as they're talking about in its entirety, we're just talking about black people, but we're talking about some that don't have outdoor exposure, kind of are weak and a bit feminine, no offense being given, and then those who are, just in the sun, 2 black, like the Egyptians and the Ethiopians. Okay, well, it's an interesting way this is broken down. Now, the complexion of courage is intermediate between the two. Now, they obviously call this the complexion of courage. Okay, they obviously call this the complexion of courage because this is where they sit themselves. And by the way, if you don't believe that's the case, there are further literature sources that I'm going to give you. And just to highlight here, the word used. So this is the word melanis. Okay, that's the word melanis there that was used to describe black. Okay, and this is the word lukoi that's used to describe white. Okay, so the word melanis here is the one that's used to describe black, and lukoi is being used to describe white. Let's carry on. Aristotle. Now, this actually is 100% ascribed to Aristotle, this next verse that I'm going to give you. So this is in Politics 7:7, and it reads as thus: the people or peoples in cold regions and those around Europe are full of spirit, but somewhat lacking in intelligence and skill. Therefore, they remain relatively free, but are politically disorganized and are unable to rule their neighbors. Okay, so he's talking about the people north of ancient Greece. But he says, but the peoples in Asia are intelligent and skilled, but lacking in spirit. Therefore, they remain ruled and enslaved. Okay, so he's talking about the people in Asia he's talking about are likely the, I would say, the Eastern Ethiopians, or the people that we classify today as Indians. Okay, and he says they're intelligent and skilled, but they're lacking in spirit. Okay, so according to Aristotle, to be clear, the Europeans weren't smart. Okay, but they're full of spirit. Okay, and the Asians are incredibly smart, but they lack spirit. But the Greek people, occupying a middle position geographically, partake of both characteristics. Okay, so once again, you can see that the Greek people, or the ancient Greeks, are placing themselves between races. Okay, they definitely are not aligning themselves with Europeans. There's no effort here to say we are like the Europeans. At every opportunity, they are differentiating themselves. Let's carry on. This is from Xenophanes, fragment 16. The Ethiopians say their gods are snub-nosed and black. Okay, now, by the way, Ethiopians, is always important to explain what Ethiopian is, because everybody thinks of a modern Ethiopian, but modern Ethiopians were ancient Axumites. Okay, Ethiopia here is talking essentially about the African continent south of Kemet. So it's pretty much the entirety. Those Ethiopian peoples can spread right to the western coast, to the eastern coast, to the southern coast. A lot of it, if you look at the Ptolemaic maps, there was a degree of unknownness below a certain line of latitude on the, in terms of the African map, in terms of what took place, I should say above, but I'm going to say below, considering we're living in the Mercator age, so to speak. But there was a degree of unknownness. But the point being that Ethiopia was seen as the entire landmass, and we know that the term Ethiops or Ethiops describes was made from two terms, which is ethio, which meant burnt or glowing or heated, by the way, burnt, glowing, heated. So it's all it's a conceptual word, very similar to kind of how Africans treat language, or the Medineta treats language. So it's this idea of essentially things that happen as a result of being heated. Okay, that's what the term ethio means. It doesn't specifically mean burned. It could be burned, it can be glowing hot, it can be heated. All of these things kind of like sit inside the word ethio, which is a kind of whole conceptual word which we struggle to have a single word to translate. And then we have the word ops, which means face. I'm told some people said it means eyes, but I'm pretty sure it means face. I'm sure we'll go back and forth about that, but Ethiops translates, or is supposed to translate, to glowing or burning face or burnt face. Now, some people say that this is a racial descriptor to describe the fact that these people were very dark. I actually think it's more of a descriptor to describe the fact that these people were renowned to live in the equatorial regions, essentially. So these people are associated with the very most hottest part of the world, the most torrid climate, so to speak. So yes, the darkness comes with that, but there's an entire concept. And I think the ancient societies were a lot more broad in their descriptions of people. They didn't think along linear binary racial lines like we live in today. Okay, they lived in a much broader sense in terms of the way they interpreted the world. So I think Ethiops actually meant more in line with those who live really close to the sun, those whose faces are close to the sun, so to speak. Okay, but that's that. Now the Thracians, once again, Northern Europeans, say theirs are blue-eyed and red-haired. So we have the Ethiopians say their gods are snub-nosed and black, and the Thracians say theirs are blue-eyed and red-haired. Once again, that's a clear kind of like separation from both peoples. And it's interesting, the blue-eyed and red-haired. This is something that the ancient Greeks are saying that's theirs. Okay, Ethiopians, snub-nosed and black. Did they take any of those on? We'll come on to that. If there was evidence of them taking on these blue-eyed and red-haired gods as well, I'd be interested to see that. I just haven't looked at that part of history yet. So let's move on. We get an idea now about where the ancient Greeks placed themselves in this kind of like historical melee. Okay, and it's clearly not amongst Northern Europeans, if you're not getting that so far. So we just talked about the word Ethiops, and we're going to talk about the blameless Ethiopians, because you can't get a clear historical context on who on how Homer painted Helen of Troy and even all of the characters of the Iliad and the Odyssey, unless you understand how the ancient Greek world interacted with Africa, or what we call Africa today, what they would have called Ethiopia back then. We have to get a clearer understanding of that. So first of all, the word Ethiops, which I've already explained, means was translated burnt face or blazing face or hot faced, however you want to describe it. Then we have the terms that are used to describe the Ethiopians. So there are two that are really kind of important. First one in the Iliad, and it said that the gods feasting among the blameless Ethiopians. So here's the passage. I'm going to read it to you. Yesterday, Zeus went to Oceanus among the blameless Ethiopians for a feast, and all the gods followed him. Okay, so I'm going to read that again. Yesterday, Zeus went to Oceanus among the blameless Ethiopians for a feast, and all the gods followed him. Now, to some people first hearing that, their kind of like initial thoughts are going to be, well, that's it's just a story. All of a sudden, now history doesn't matter. Throw it out the window. You don't need to be historically like, oh, you're just speaking it. It's very clear that the god Zeus feasted amongst the Ethiopians. This is not parroted. This is not copied. This is not seen in any other group in the Iliad or the Odyssey. The gods only dined with the Ethiopians. Only. This is very unique behavior and unique treatment. Okay? In the Odyssey, it says that the Ethiopians are the most distant and favored people. So there was a godliness that was assigned to the Ethiopians. Now, there is a historical reason why this is the case. It's not just an isolated kind of, well, it's in the Homeric, it's just kind of like a Homeric belief that the Ethiopians were blameless and the gods dying with them. And after, you know, after the Iliad and Odyssey, we don't have any other mention of gods being associated with Africa. False. Absolutely false. You're going to see that this is an inherent part of Greek history, is the association of their gods with Africa. So let's move on. So here's where we're going to start getting with some real history. Okay, the Greek pantheon came from the Nile Valley, and I touched on this before. I mentioned this to you guys before, that if you work through the book of Manetho and the king list that was structured by him, the Histories Egyptica that was written by Manetho, it becomes very clear that a large part of history is being hidden from everybody, in that almost the entire Greek pantheon can be found as the founders of ancient Egypt. Now, to make that clear in terms of the order, this means that the ancient Greeks inherited all of their gods from the ancient civilization of ancient Egypt. And this is supported numerous times in literature, in Greek literature, in the book of Manetho itself, which we're going to look at some of this lineage, and in further parts. Okay, it's absolutely supported. So first of all, Alexander the Great was famously visited the oracle of Amun, or Amen, I should say, and was declared the son of Zeus Ammon, or Zeus Amen, or Zeus Amin. Amen is an ancient Egyptian god. And when I say ancient Egyptian, Amen actually is an Ethiopian god. And this is where it gets very interesting, because Zeus and Amen, as you can see here from Alexander the Great's visit to the oracle of Amen, the Greeks called Amen Zeus Amen. So their god Zeus was basically their derivation of the ancient Egyptian god Amen. And this now makes sense that Zeus in early iterations was called Zeus Ethiops. And we're going to come on to that in a moment. So he actually had the name, he had the appellation Zeus Ethiops. That's what he was called, and we'll come on to that shortly. So Zeus and Amen being the same character. Hermes and Tahuti, which you guys will probably know already. Most people know that. Athena and Neat. Okay, so all of these gods and we're going to list them all, by the way. This is just a few, just to kind of like warm us up. But let's now read a really important piece of Greek literature to really understand this relationship between the ancient Greeks and the ancient Greek pantheon and the ancient Egyptian gods, where they inherited their pantheon. I'm going to read this now. This is in Timaeus 21 to 22. Okay. And this reads, "There is in Egypt, in the delta, at the head of which the stream of the Nile divides, a certain district called Saitic." And Saitic is where we get the word Saidi from, by the way. The dynasty of Sais or Saidi was actually the last native dynasty of ancient Egypt, which will make actual sense as to why the Saidi population are so dominant today. Okay, now obviously the Saidis have become very mixed with the Greeks that were there, but that's where the word Saidi comes from. So a certain district called Saitic or Saidi. The great city of this district is Sais or Said, from which came King Amasis. The founder of the city is a goddess whose Egyptian name is Neat, and whom the Greeks call Athena. So to be clear, you'll hear people argue against this. Oh, Athena, that was made up. Oh, there's no evidence for it. Oh, that comes from the book Black Athena. There's no evidence for it. Actually, there's plenty of evidence for it. Okay, in fact, I feel like playing you a video where someone says just that, so you can kind of like understand that a lot of these grifters are saying things, but this is ancient Greek texts here saying quite clearly, and there's no controversy, the founder of the city is a goddess whose Egyptian name is Neat, okay, and whom the Greeks call Athena. They inherited Athena from Neat, and they got Neat from the district of Sais or Said. That's where they got the name from. Okay, and there's a Greek translation there. So there's no debate to be had here. That was written, by the way, that was written 360 BC. So that's the 4th century BCE. But the dialogue places the conversation. So the dialogue is really talking about something that might have happened around the 6th century BCE. So this would have been, you know, contemporaneous with Herodotus, this actual event taking place. To be very, very clear. Let's move on. So this is where I'm going to talk to you about the Manethan tradition. So this is some some photos that I took from Manetho's king list. So you guys can see for yourself how the dynasties are laid out and see how many ancient Greek names you recognize here. So the first dynasty of Egypt, okay, the first ruler. So these are the demigod dynasties, and these are the pre-dynastic when it comes to ancient Egyptian tradition, or, you know, Kemetic tradition. These are the pre-dynastic rulers before Nama, Min, and the official first dynasty. So these are the ancient Egyptians believe their ancestors were the gods and the demigods. Okay, and it's important for Greeks, or the ancient Greeks, to cast back their memory to this and to accept, you know, the ancient Egyptian demigods as their own, because it gave them a foothold in a very, very old history. But let's read. So number 1, we have Hephaestus, who ruled for 727 years. Then we have 2, Helios, the son, okay, who was the son of Hephaestus, likely where they get Ra, or likely taken from Ra. Next we have Agarthodemon, okay, who ruled for 56 years. After that, we have Kronos, which you guys will recognize. Next, we have Osiris and Isis, who, by the way, apart from the name change, essentially remained unchanged in ancient Greeks, that they were an important part of the ancient Greek pantheon alongside the other Greek gods. Next, we have Typhon. Then we have Horus. Then we have Ares. Then we have Anubis. Then we have Heracles. Then we have Apollo. Then we have Ammon. Then we have Thethys. Then we have Sosus. And then we have Zeus. Okay, so you can already see from reading through that list how many of these are reflected in the ancient Greek pantheon. And here are some of the name parallels that exist where it's likely there was a direct borrowing. So we have Hephaestus and Ptah. And remember, I've spoken to you. Hephaestus is the first in these dynasties. And I've spoken to you about how important Ptah is to the ancient Greeks. It's one of the things that are being hidden. I strongly believe it. We already know that in the name Copt, we have Ka Ptah. So the Copts, this is the Christian Greeks in ancient Egypt. Okay, they get their name from Ptah. But then also I believe the Ptolemies put that T in Ptolemy as an ode to Ptah. I'm still looking at the etymology of it, but they shouldn't, because the word Ptolemy relates to the ancient Greek word polemis, which means war, which is where we get the word polemic from, for instance, to fight against something. But there's no reason to put a T in there when it came to the names of the rulers. So they say, oh yeah, Ptolemy means warlike, but what's the T there for? The T is there as an ode to Ptah. And we'll talk about that a little bit later anyway, because I got a bit more proven to do with that. But let's look at the name correspondences again. Helios was the god Ra. Sosis or Shu is the ancient Egyptian god Shu. Cronus, ancient Egyptian god Jeb. Osiris already said that, kind of remains unchanged. Typhon is Seth. Heru is Heru, or Horus is Horus. Hermes is Tahuti. Dionysus is another version of Osiris. Athena is Neat, and Heracles is Herishaf. Now that one's very interesting, because I do believe that actually the term Hera comes directly from Herishaf. But anyway, let's move on. So the origin of heroes, we're going to talk about Herishaf really quickly. This is a little bit of a side quest, by the way, but I think it's very interesting because it builds on research that I've been doing in terms of the relationship between ancient Kemet and the Yoruba pantheon as well. So I'm just going to quickly dive into this side quest, and then we'll dive in and dive out, get back to the subject at hand. So the term hero, the origin of heroes, okay, is evidence of Pan-African syncretism. So what do I mean? So the term heros literally means demigods, and you heard that guy talking about earlier that a hero can be anything. It's not necessarily a good person. It's just essentially a demigod, someone who has the blood of a god. That's literally all it was, or the blood of a deity, someone who was seen as being divine, and they could do good things, they could do bad things. This, in fact, describes the ancient religious world to a T. This idea of there being forces, a distinct force for good and distinct force for evil, that is a very late Judeo-Christian ideology. It's not something that existed before that. Before that, all gods could do evil and do good, and that includes the God of the Bible, the Old Testament, Yahweh. He was very much a good and an evil doer. Okay, he wasn't just doing one or the other. He wasn't seen as being perfect. So this is very much a kind of like a late Abrahamic thing where the idea of good and evil got revised. So you have Heros, which is the Greek term, which essentially means demigod. Okay, and then you have Hera, which is a Grecian goddess. Now, the important thing to note is that there's no pre-etymology for where the word Heros and Hera come from. In other words, there's no way to explain them. They just simply called it a Hera, and they simply said the word was Hera. So you can't decompose or break down where it came from. There's nothing pre this. And the reason why is because it was inherited from ancient Egypt. So what do we have in ancient Egypt? We have the word Heru, okay, which was an Egyptian god, but also the word Heru literally means many heads. Okay, because the word Her or HR or Ori, I believe that was Hori that translates to HR. So Hori, the word Hori or Her, as we call it now, literally means head in ancient Egypt. So Heru, although it was the name of a deity, literally would have meant many heads, or it would have been the plural for heads. Some people say faces, but I think heads is closer. Now, heads in ancient Egyptian and in ancient Yoruba, so the ancient Yoruba word for head is Ori, is a double entendre in that you can say head as in my head or my body, but head can also mean leader, ruler, someone to be looked up to. So you have Heru, which is many heads. Now, why is this important? Because if I scroll down, we have here Het Heru, which is a term you guys will all be familiar with. Het Heru is where we get Hathor from. And we've always translated Hathor as House of Horus, but then it doesn't compute with what took place. The House of Horus was essentially the largest cult in ancient Kemet. I think it had over 8 or up to around 800 members, I think. So many of the rulers passed on to become deities, or the queens passed on to become deities. Now, the term Heru in Het Heru, although symbolized by the falcon, still meant temple of heads or temple of rulers, temple of, you could say, demigods. Okay, so temple of heads, house or temple of heads, not necessarily house of Horus himself. So you have the double entendre in terms of the way the language was used. Now, where does this overlap with the ancient Kemetic? Well, they had a district called and a deity called Herishaf. Now, this is where it gets a little bit interesting. I try not to lose you too much. The term Heri, once again, is just a kind of a dual pluralization for the word her, which means heads, but in this case, balanced heads, 2 heads. Okay, so we have Heri, where we have the I pluralization. It normally means 2 of or a pair of, and then we have Sha. Now, just Sha means son or daughter, depending on what follows. If it's an F, it means son, because son is the male identifier in ancient Kemetic. If it was a T, Heru Shat, it would be daughter, because T is the feminine identifier. Now, you don't pronounce either the F or the T, although they're written. So this would have been Herisha, which has been, I believe, mistranslated to he who was upon the lake. I believe the true translation is son of the heads. Okay, son of the heads. So the Horisha or the Herishaf is the son of the heads. And this is likely where the Yoruba get the term Orisha from. Because the Sha in Orisha doesn't have a local translation in Yoruba, but the Ori does. The Ori means head. The Sha comes from Kemetic or Proto-Kemetic. It might be before Kemetic or it might be directly. So we have Orisha, which are literally the children of the head. Ori being head in Yoruba, Sha being children or son of. And that's where the Orisha get their name from. So we have Herishaf, Orisha. It's the same term. And what's really interesting here is that the ancient Greek word hero comes from here, because the name of this district, Horisha, became Heracles. It became Heracles. Now, Hera, they don't have a translation for that. They just say it's the goddess. But Cles means the glory of. Okay, so Heracles translated that individual's name. They say it means the glory of Hera, but actually it might lightly translate to the glory of the heads. Okay, those who work in glory, or the one who works in glory of the deities, the demigods. So we have Herishaf, which became Herakleos in ancient Greek. Okay, I told you that was a bit of a side quest. If you're nerdy like me and you like that kind of stuff, I just throw that out there. It's just my theory. By the way, I'm very open to be kind of like challenged on that as well, but I think the kind of like, yeah, the syncretism is quite strong. Let me move on. All right, so the homes of the gods were in Africa. Now, guys, if you are, how many we got? 281. If you haven't tuned in, or you started tuning out on that little rant that I gave you, I need you now to just come back to me, because this is easily the most explosive piece of data that I'm going to be giving you today. Okay, so I need you all to lock in. If you're here, there's 281. Make sure you've hit the likes up. But if you're here right now and you're interested in hearing this next revelation I'm about to give, guys, I need you to get into the chat and talk to me. Talk to me and let me know that you're here. Talk to me and let me know that you're with me, so I'm not here alone, because I've been talking for a long time. So I'm going to quickly chuck this up and we're going to have a discussion about this, because this is like easily the most explosive thing. Okay, shout out, people are here. I try to remember where have I put this doc. I hope it's in this account. Please be in this account. Okay, we're in. Oh, I think it might be this account. Oh, no, I know what account it is. So, guys, I just got to quickly sign into an account. So I'm just going to quickly unshare the screen. I hope you can still hear me. I'm just going to quickly get my account open. Okay, glad to hear loads of you guys are still with me on this. This part's explosive, guys. This is kind of like the open and shut. This is the open and shut part we're about to step into. Oh, no, it's not that account either. Which account is it? Yeah, damn it. Maybe it's this account. If it's not this account, I'm going to be well confused. Okay, I've got it. All right, I'm going to share my screen again, guys. And I'm going to zoom in, guys, because this really is the open and shut of this discussion here. Well, let me zoom in. I need to zoom in. Okay, zooming in a bit. One more. Okay, I don't know how many of you are going to be able to make this out, but I'm going to read it out to you anyway. Okay. Now, the point that I just raised to you guys, and I'm going to quickly state it again, okay, is that the homes of the gods, the homes of the Greek gods were in Africa. Okay, the homes of the Greek gods were in Africa. Let me actually just give a few shout outs before I start, because I know I'll forget. I'm prone to forget. So shout out to James Stewart. Thank you very much for the $5. He said, ask them where Sub-Sahara ends and North Africa starts and watch them try to answer that. They haven't been able to give me a good answer. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It moves all about the place. It moves all about the place. If you look at the many of the old maps, they have everything south of the Atlas Mountains being Negro land, which is an interesting one, because that throws a spanner in their works quite a lot. because that includes the entire Sahara. But anyway, yeah, shout out to you. Thank you very much for that $5. I appreciate it. Dregger says, I feel like I just got called out in middle school. Shout out to you, my brother. Appreciate it. Thank you very much, Wildflower, who says, great live stream, King. Appreciate you guys appreciating it. And please, guys, keep showing love and let me know that you're all here and you're all engaged. And feel free to drop a donation if you feel like you're there or not. All right, so let's go through the homes of the Greek pantheon, okay? Because this is really important. Heraclepolis Magna, that literally translates to city of Heracles, great. Magna means great or tall, okay? Here's an interesting side note. Yoruba for tall is Magun. But anyway, that's an aside. I'm not going to start talking about that now because that will blow your mind anyway. So Heraclepolis Magna, yeah, it means great city of Heracles. So this is basically saying this is where Heracles is from. Where is Heracles from? Answer, Middle Egypt. What's the city directly associated with this? Well, we've already talked about that. It was Herishaf, and the ancient Greeks changed the name of that deity to Heracles. And we've just done a bit of etymology there. Now, what's really important here? No major older Greek Heraclepolis is known. There's no other Heraclepolis or Heraclepolis, or whatever it's called, Heraclepolis. There's no other. There's only one, and it's in Middle Egypt. So one of the most important demigods in ancient Greek society has his home in Africa and nowhere else. Okay? Nowhere else. This is where it was. Let's carry on, guys. Hermopolis Magna. We already know what that means, guys. Okay? City of Hermes, the great city of Hermes. Hermopolis. Once again, Hermes, the god of, is it wisdom in Greek? I think it's still wisdom. Is it flight? I can't remember as well. I can't remember other things, but we know that they essentially inherited that from Thoth or Tehuti. Yeah, the ancient Egyptian god Tehuti. Now, there was later Greek Hermopolis found, so they did found a later Hermopolis in the Aegean region. However, the Egyptian city is older. So this one remained the oldest, and this one was the only one that was given the appellation Magna. So the great city of Hermopolis was always in Africa because they acknowledged that Hermes was an African god. So even though they made other Hermopolis, the great one was Messenger. Thank you very much, Macy. I knew that it was something else there. The great one was in Africa and remained in Africa. Let's carry on. Diospolis Magna. This is where it gets very interesting, guys, because we'll start tying this together to Zeus. And as a result of tying it together, we're going to tie it together to Helen of Troy. Diospolis Magna. That is the great city of Zeus. Okay, Zeus, city, great. Diospolis Magna. Where is that? Thebes. You guys hearing me? Waset, Upper Egypt. The great city of Zeus was situated in Upper Egypt, Upper Kemet. We're talking about Waset. Yeah, we're getting very close to Sudan here, guys. We already know that. Now, there was a Greek Thebes, but that was not called Magna. And it's also important to know that the Greek Thebes is much younger than the Egyptian Thebes. The Egyptian Thebes is the older one. So Diospolis Magna, the home of Zeus, is in Upper Egypt. They're acknowledging that Zeus is an African deity. This is Amun. And to be clear, Amun was even acknowledged by the ancient Egyptians to be an Ethiopian god. Amen was borrowed from Ethiopia. There's a text that I talk about that brother Casual Smash Rockwell translated, where the where the ancient Egyptians are having this kind of like magic battle with the Ethiopians, or with the Kushites, I should say. And it's stated that Amun or Amen is called the bull of Meroe. and the fact that the Amun will favor the Kushites over the Egyptians. They acknowledge that this is their god. He's going to favor them over us. So Amun is an ancient Ethiopian god or Central African god. And yes, Amun is Imana in Rwandan, like Wildflower says. It's Amani in amongst the Meroite queens. Okay, Amun has recent worship in Africa, deeper in Africa. We didn't the worship of Amun, or Amen, I should say, or Amani or Imana did not stop. Let me carry on. Diospolis Parva. Okay, so another city associated with Zeus. Okay, there's no equivalent to Diospolis Parva in Greeks. Once again, so two cities of Zeus on the African continent. Let's carry on. Apollonopolis Magna. We already know what this is the great city of Apollo, okay, which obviously they've taken from Ra. Okay, so Apollonopolis Magna, the great city of Apollo, once again in Upper Egypt, Edfu. Upper Egypt is where they saw the homeland of Apollo. Multiple Greek Apollonian cult cities, none of them called Apollonopolis Magna, the great city of Apollo. That was the homeland. Egyptian cult or city, once again, is the oldest. Guys, we can go on, but in fact, we're going to go on. We'll skip over the next Apollo because we've already done one and that feels like it was enough. Aphroditepolis. We already know what this is. This is the great city of Aphrodites. Okay. Now, this was inherited from Hathor. Aphrodite is a derivation of Hathor. Okay, Het Heru. Middle Egypt, once again, located. Now, there's Aphrodisias and Aphrodite cult centers in Greece and Asia Minor. But the oldest, once again, is in Egypt. Now, I do not know if this doesn't have the appellation Magna, so I can't say that this is the only or the major one. But we do know this is the oldest. Let's carry on. Antiopolis, okay, great city of Antaeus. No major Greek Antipolis equivalent. So this deity is thoroughly being referred to as an Upper Egyptian deity. This is the great city of Antipolis. Think about this, guys. I know this might just sound like I'm giving you the same thing, guys. Yeah, I know this might sound like I'm giving you stuff. You have to understand, ancient Greek was an empire in itself. And it's saying the great city. Imagine the very god that they worship. Imagine like for instance, let's take a modern religion, okay? And we're saying that the great city of, I don't know, Jesus, okay? For modern religions, say the great city of Jesus, yeah? So we call, Jesusopolis, yeah? And the modern Europeans say Jesusopolis, and they place it in Spain. Yeah, what are they saying? What is everyone going to associate that city with? They're going to say this is where Jesus is from. This is not a small or insignificant thing. They're making it clear they believe these places to be the homelands of these deities. Leontopolis, Heliopolis, once again, city of Helios. There are other sub-cult centers, but the Heliopolis, once again, is in Lower Egypt on the African continent. Okay, so guys, this is almost definitive evidence that the ancient Greek pantheons weren't some kind of like, oh, well, they just borrowed a few deities. Oh, they borrowed a few names. Throughout their existence, they acknowledged that this is where their gods came from. And then you have Homer himself acknowledging that the gods only dine with the Ethiopians. The relationship here between Africa and the ancient Greek gods is not insignificant. It's very significant. And actually, it's visual as well. So that's what we're going to move on to next. So I hope that was enlightening. Give me a few ones in the chat if you thought that was interesting. Let's carry on. So the Greek gods were black. Okay, the Greek gods were black is what I'm coming on to next. Yes, I said it. The Greek gods were black. Let's read Herodotus Histories 2.43 to 53. Herodotus Histories. Herodotus repeatedly claims many Greek religious rites came from Egypt, and names of gods came from Egypt, and mystery traditions had Egyptian roots. Listen to what Herodotus says. Almost all the names of the gods came into Greece from Egypt. That is Herodotus' words, guys. I'm going to read that again. Almost all the names of the gods came into Greece from Egypt. Those grifters like Metatron, these fake people who claim that they're historians, who claim they don't want, oh, it's DEI, this, that, and the other. The ancient Greeks weren't hiding this. Your Mary Kay Lefkowitz and all of these racist classicists might try and hide it because they need Greece to have basically just farted into existence like spontaneous flatulence. You know, that's what they need. It needs to just come, oh, here's Greece. That's not Greek history, okay? Herodotus says it here clearly. All the names of the gods came into Greece from Egypt. That's indisputable. And we're now seeing the evidence. We're seeing the compounding evidence. We're seeing the cities that were founded by, or at least renamed by the Greeks in Egypt to say this is where our gods came from. We're seeing the king's list of Manetho showing you the deities, the name of the pantheon, the Greek pantheons as the founders and the early pharaohs of ancient Kemet or Nile Valley civilization. This is not a difficult thing. Like, you can't disprove what has already been written down, guys. Now, what I'm showing you here as well is a depiction of the Greek god Ares. And can you see, guys, that he has jet black skin? You'll notice that the lady standing behind him has white skin. They had the ability to have drawn him white, and they chose to draw him black. This is Ares. I'm going to say that again, guys. They had the ability to draw him white, and they drew him black. The Greek gods were black skinned. Yeah, the Greek gods were black skinned. Now, guys, am I saying the Greek gods were, they viewed every Greek god as being like a negroid? That's not what I'm saying, guys. I have to make that very, very clear. The color black had significant divine properties in terms of deities. All of ancient Egypt's gods were black, just like the ancient Greek gods were black. They associated blackness with divinity. Now, where this becomes an interesting conversation is when we're talking about demigods like Helen of Troy being depicted as a black woman, and people turning around and going, no, she should be white with blonde hair. I'm afraid whiteness with blonde hair is not associated with divinity. I'm going to say that again. I'm afraid whiteness with blonde hair is not associated with divinity. Okay, let's carry on. The gods of Egypt were black in appearance and African in origin. So we have to make this very, very clear. Now let's move on to Zeus, because he's the big deal here. This is the character that we're discussing. And yes, this is a depiction of Zeus. And this depiction of Zeus is a fantastic one. Okay, yes, it's on a vase, but why is it so fantastic? This image depicts the myth of the birth of Athena from the head of her father, Zeus. Okay, Zeus here is painted in black. Okay, jet black skinned. Yet Athena being born from his head is shown white armed. Now, once again, is this symbolic significance? The point being that they are comfortable with the fact that their gods were black skinned. That's very, very clear. Let's read about Zeus, because this is where it gets really interesting. There's evidence for an epithet of Zeus known as Zeus Ethiops. Now, this is very significant, guys. Zeus Ethiops, either you could translate it two ways. It either means Zeus the Ethiopian, or it means Zeus the burnt faced, or Zeus the glowing. This essentially is saying that however they're describing the Ethiopians, they're describing Zeus. Zeus Ethiops. Now, this isn't just made up. You can find this in Lycophron, Alexandria 537, which is dated to the 3rd century BC. Zeus Ethiops of Chios. Okay. So that appellation, Zeus Ethiops of Chios. Now, why is this significant, guys? Why is this significant that he's called Zeus Ethiops? Well, first of all, he's never called Zeus Lukoi or Zeus Lukos. And Lukos is the word that Metatron was, oh, white arm, she's called white arm, she's called white arm. Okay, well, Zeus is called Zeus Ethiops, which you have defined as burnt-faced. So in the island of Chios, he's known as burnt-faced Zeus. That's your translation, by the way. This is the way they describe black people. Cool. Is that the way they describe black people? So every time we see Ethiops, we can think a black person. That means Zeus is a black man. And the island of Chios is not insignificant, by the way. It's the 5th largest island in the Aegean. I'll show you a picture of it shortly. It's a very significant island. It's also the Aegean island that's closest to Turkey. So it's very, very significant. Zeus Ethiops was mentioned also in the 12th century by John Zetzes, a Byzantine commentator. He says, Ethiops, the glowing or the black, a surname of Zeus in Chios. So once again, reinforcing the fact that Zeus was known as Zeus the Ethiopian or Zeus Ethiops in Chios. They saw Zeus, if you want a raw translation, they're calling him Zeus the black man. Okay, this is a significant portion of Greek society calling him Zeus the black man. Let's carry on. Let's have a quick read. These chapters are from Snowden's book Blacks in Antiquity. So let me read from here. Memnon, and this is really important, guys, was described, I'm going to say also considering what we're talking about, was described in some instances as Memnon Ethiops. Now, guys, we know who Memnon is. Okay, Memnon is the former ruler or was a ruler of Ethiopia, an Ethiopian empire who's mentioned in the Iliad. Okay, we know who Memnon is. He's a significant character in Greek mythology and was seen as the ruler of the Ethiopians. He's called Memnon Ethiops. That is the same appellation that they're given to Zeus here. So Zeus is called Zeus Ethiops. The very ruler of Ethiopia is called Memnon Ethiops. Okay, and as Memnon Niger in others, paralleling an antithesis common in contrasted white and Negro hair. So let me move on as well. I want to read from this page as well. Eurybates, the herald of Odysseus, who accompanied him from Ithaca to Troy, was black-skinned and woolly-haired. A black-skinned, woolly-haired individual we have seen was to the Greeks an Ethiopian. The only person so described in Homer, Eurybates, was apparently well known for a reply to Penelope's request for a description of the comrades accompanying her husband that the disguised Odysseus mentioned Eurybates. Now bear in mind, the disguised Odysseus is what we were talking about earlier. Okay, so this familiarity is very, very, very interesting. Now let's talk about the island of Chios because we've just brought it up. Okay, some historians relate Zeus to being the Grecian manifestation of Amen, as we mentioned there. So here's a statue of Amen, the Theban deity. Okay, and bear in mind, Dios Polis Magna, okay, the great city of Zeus was Thebes, where the Theban dynasty came from, who worshipped Amen. So once again, this kind of like relationship between Amen and Zeus is a significant one. Now, why is this relevant? Zeus Ethiops as an appellation would correspond with Ammonite tradition of Amen being a god of Kushites or inherited from Ethiopians. So Amen, this Kushite god, this Ethiopian, this Central African god, was also Zeus. So Zeus is significantly associated with black people, with African people. If you want to refute this, feel free to refute me with literature. Okay, you're gonna have to refute the fact that Dios Polis Magna is Thebes, which is in Upper Egypt, which is very, very close to Central Africa, by the way. So if you're gonna have to refute that. They called the great city of Zeus a southern Egyptian one, which is almost on the border to Sudan. That's the great city of Zeus. The Upper Egyptian Theban dynasties of the Amarna era were Ammonites. I spoke about that already. So Zeus the Ethiopian and Amen the Kushite. Okay, Zeus Ethiops, Amen the Kushite. You can see the borrowing here. Amen, the Kushite, Zeus, the Ethiopian, Zeus, Ethiops. Here's Chios. And that's where Chios sits. It's a very large island in the Aegean. Okay. So, well, I left that out. Is that my last slide? I feel like there should have been a slide here talking about Helen of Troy and her parentage. Did I talk about that? We could go back to that now, actually. So let's I thought I had a summary slide. But let's go back to Helen of Troy and her parentage, which is here. Okay, so we have Helen associated as the child of Zeus. We have Zeus Ethiops, as he was known in Chios, Zeus the Ethiopian. And we have Helen being depicted as a black woman. But we have the god Zeus being very, very comfortably associated with blackness. And he's not the only one. In fact, I wanted to share a couple of images with you guys so you get a really grand understanding of how important blackness was in ancient Egyptian deities. So I want to just quickly go back actually to, we can start off here. The fact that this is what's got people so riled up. How dare you have a black woman depicting Helen of Troy, the white-armed Helen of Troy? Well, white-armed was just an idiom. It's just the idiom. That's all it was. It's just the idiom. That's all it is. It simply means someone who's a supple arm. This is why it was only used to describe women and never used to describe men. Okay, it meant soft-armed. It meant kind of virgin-armed, arms that had not been exposed to the sun. Okay, paler. You could say pale arms because you're going to be paler if you haven't been exposed to the sun than if you have been. So in terms of being comparative, yes, it could mean pale, but pale in regards to, you know, the context of who you are as an individual. So I could say you're pale armed as an idiom to say you don't get out much. It doesn't mean that you're literally white. But if we look at her parentage, to what we know of, okay, her parentage, we know of Zeus, and Zeus, as you've seen, guys, as I hope I've proven quite well, is an African. Okay, Zeus is an African. If you want to know more about the appearance of let's have a look at the appearance of some of these Greek deities, just so everyone's very, very clear. Okay, this is a depiction of Ares once again. One second, let me zoom in. Though I've got bigger ones. Oh, that one's smaller. So a couple of depictions of Ares there, which I think I've shown you already. This is a depiction of, is that Zeus? I'm trying to remember. You can see, I'm just want you to pay attention, guys. These are black-skinned individuals on a item that they could have painted them white. The gods are being portrayed as black. Okay, that's not peculiar. I'm not sure who this is. Some of them have labels. So let me go to the ones that have labels so it's clearer. Okay, Heracles. Sorry, so this is Heracles. We already spoke about the fact that Heraclepolis, okay, is in Middle Egypt, and Heracles is simply just an adapted Egyptian deity. We have Cycnus, son of Ares, here, all of them depicted in black. Ares again, Ares again. And bear in mind, they're depicting these gods as Heracles again, depicted in black, and we have two white-skinned attendants. Okay, so you have a white-skinned attendant here, a white-skinned attendant there, but Ares himself is depicted with jet black skin. That is a decision. Once again, the deification, the deities are being depicted with black skin. Okay, this was an example of a phenotype that might have followed someone like Septimus Severus, if you look at that image of Septimus. We have the Greek deities there again, once again being depicted with black skin. Now, also, if you look at some of the ancient Greek ceramics and contemporaneous work, it was very, very common for the ancient Greeks. There's a load of quotes, by the way, but I'm way too tired to read them. We can do that on a part 2, maybe. Okay. But I just want to show you some of these artifacts from ancient Greece. Once again, the argument being made here is not that ancient Greeks were black or that they were African, but it's that their exposure to black people who are phenotypically black, phenotypically African was very, very vast. And what you had was a very integrated, mixed society with loads of different phenotypes. And they were very comfortable with their position sitting on the middle of that. So it's very, you had, I would say blackness was incredibly common in ancient Greece. Wasn't this foreign thing, as you could see from their gods, as you could see from their parentage, the fact that they believed that they actually descended from, or at least their great cities were founded by ancient Greeks, and many of the actual ruling dynasties said they descended from ancient Egypt. Okay, this is a charioteer from the Herculaneum. This might be a depiction of Heracles himself. Individual boy of Hellenistic origin. So these are all images from one of my favorite books, Circle of Coins, and this one's from 4th century BC. Circe and Odysseus. So we just spoke about Circe. We just spoke about Odysseus here, and Odysseus being depicted clearly as a black individual here. Now, this could be the Odysseus who's actually in the disguise here because he looks old and ragged. But this is a depiction of Odysseus, which I thought was quite interesting. This is a side of the story, regardless of how he's being depicted, a side of the story that you're not going to hear from these grifters channels because they don't want any blackness being associated with the ancient Greeks. But it's a reality they have to deal with. This is an Etruscan vase, so I'm going to skip ahead. But Etruscan society obviously has loads of, those who know when it comes to the Etruscans. So anyway, this is a long live stream. We're 3 hours in, and I think I'm going to wrap it up there, guys. I hope that was informative for you guys. I wanted to do that live stream to just basically say that this lily whitening of the ancient Greek society is something that doesn't have any founding. They literally venerated Africans. Their gods were from Africa. Their great cities of the gods were based in Africa, and their demigods were black. That's what, that's what was discussed here today. So you've seen plenty of evidence, both literary, visual, discursive, that you could discuss with anybody. And I hope that you guys found that useful. I'm very, very, very tired now. Okay. But I hope that you found that informative. Let's strike back against these idiots now. Yeah. Not just to say that, yes, a black woman can play, and yes, it's a piece of fictional history, but let's also strike back at these idiots and start telling them the reality of black people as images of divinity in ancient Greece, and how comfortable the ancient Greeks were with that depiction. Okay. Hope you had a good time, guys. Yeah, let's call it a day. Hit up the likes before you go. We've managed to sustain an audience of in and around 300, dipping to below, going above it. So I hope we got well over 300 likes in the chat. All right, guys. Someone asked me who these are. So this is Metatron, Nerdrotic, and this dude is a guy called Al Jokes, who's a comedian who I found funny, but he made a really horrible racist video about this. So I thought I'd stick him on there as well. I was feeling very, very offended when he did that. It was like I felt cheated. You know, when you find a content creator who you really like, and then they do something that really like blindsides you, like, okay, you're the op now. So I unsubscribed and I've put him on my thumbnail. Anyway, guys, hope you've had a fantastic live stream. I have had a good one. I wasn't expecting to go on this late, but it is late. We'll call it a day. Thank you very much. Let me give a quick shout out to all of the donations. Thank you very much, Wildflower, who said that was a great live stream. Thank you for being here. Shout out to Dregger, James Stewart. Massive shout out to Stephen Carter, Macy, 4DV XX, and I think I'll cover that topic reluctantly on the King Mono show. Stuff like that really depresses me, so I'm not sure how much energy I can give it, because then it makes it kind of like, it makes me it incapacitates me a bit when I cover really distressing topics like that. Shout out to Just Me Noel. And yeah, I think that's everyone who made a donation today. Some of you made several, so I appreciate you very much. Have a good weekend, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.